Who's got the student? Okay.
Who better than me?
Okay. Okay, we're gonna get started. So it is January 14th, 2025. I call this regular meeting of the PCSSD School Board to order. Ms. Smith, would you please call the roll?
All right. Ward.
Present.
Tate.
Here.
Me. Here. Potter.
Here.
Maynard.
Here.
Keller.
Present.
Delaney.
Present. Okay. Will you also introduce our student board member tonight?
Yes. This evening we have Mr. Sherwood. His name is Kamorian Matthews. He's a senior at Sylvan Hills High School. He's the president of the Sylvan Hills High School Student Council and the Little Rock Kappa League, a member of Student Voice, an Academy Ambassador, and the member of the Mayor's Youth Council of the City of Sherwood. He's also gone to the 2024 Boys State. Wait, you are a Boys State alum? You've been to Boys State. Okay. Yes. And Kamorian is a civic leader in the sense that I've been to, I don't know anywhere I've been in Sherwood that he's not been. I even went to a event in the fall, and I turn around and Kamorian's there. Kamorian's everywhere. He is Mr. Sherwood. He is the light of Sylvan Hills High School because his beacon glows for everyone and for all. He is all-American boy. So congratulations and welcome to the night.
Young man.
And if I'm not mistaken, he knows how to speak at school board meetings. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I've seen you there before. Now you're here. You may interject or participate in any matter that you have an opinion on. And you don't need to raise your hand. Just come right in, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, and welcome. And would you
Thank you.
please join me in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have no public comments tonight, so that will bring us right to our special presentations, which are two superintendent search firm representatives, Dr. Keith Williams with McPherson Jacobson and Mr. Mike Poore with Education Partners. Before the meeting, I visited with both of them, and we came up with a system, random number generator of who would go first, and it was Mr. Mike Poore. So, Mr. Mike, would you please join us up here and talk to us about your services?
I will, and if you can indulge me to just pass out a document for you all to use to keep me on the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Poore's presentation is on your board agenda.
Hello, darlings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Well, it's really cool that, in my mind, that you have such a good audience here to hear this. So sometimes these things get put into the very back of an agenda. And so first off, I appreciate that I'm on the front of this agenda, and I also think it's really cool that there's such a good group of community members that are getting to listen to this. For community members, I don't have to tell the board this, but for community members, being a part of a superintendent search is one of the most important functions that a school board has an opportunity to engage in. It's a huge responsibility, probably made even more dramatic with the times in terms of just the competitiveness and really, to be honest with you, some of the lack of candidates. So what we've done to try to package our presentation is really try to do a PowerPoint slide that you also, I'm sure, will receive through your board docs, but then also then to have a tool that you can kind of hold on to and keep with you as you leave tonight and start to give consideration between two good firms. So I'll first say, man, Dr. Keith Williams is a great man, and McPherson is a very, very good firm. So you're never going to hear me say anything negative about McPherson, and they've done great work in our state. And to be honest with you, the guy that owns that company is someone that was my superintendent back in Colorado Springs. Hate to say this, but that was decades ago. So anyway, I want to now highlight Ed Partners and who we are. We're a firm that is really a relatively new firm. So if you want to go say, let's compare how many searches one group did compared to ours, we're going to lose that battle. We're brand new into this field. We're 2 years in as a consulting firm. We are doing our first superintendent search. We're in about 2/3 of the way through the search at the Jonesboro School District right now. But we think that what we're doing, because of who we are, who makes up our company, which I'll share in just a minute, we kind of have a different mindset going into things like this in terms of giving consideration to what is possible and how to do it so that you can not only set the table for you all to make good decisions, but to have your community ride along with you to say, wow, have we just picked a superstar to be in our district that really fits who we need for the Pulaski County School District. So you can see that I have an agenda here. There's really a very short amount of slides that I'm going to present to you. I think it's important first for you to understand who our team is. Our team really represents a whole lot of years of support and being in education. The founder of our company, Dwight Jones, he and I actually started to work together when he was the superintendent in the military base in Fountain, Fort Carson. He actually elevated from that position to become the first African American commissioner for the state of Colorado. He did that for 4 or 5 years and then moved to Las Vegas, which is a district of over 300,000 students. He then went on to the private sector to work in Discovery Education and in McGraw-Hill. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, he started this concept of doing Ed Partners. And that's when he reached out to me, and our friendship brought that together. We have a small but mighty team. We have influences in some of the largest school districts in this country. If you go along the I-70 corridor, you can see us supporting school districts like St. Louis and Kansas City and Denver. We're helping out in Houston and Dallas and also in Las Vegas. But we're in really small districts. We've done the smallest districts that you can possibly imagine. And a part of that is because both Dwight and I have roots from very small communities, and we never want to lose sight of the fact that sometimes small districts have just as many challenges as the big districts. So our firm works all over the place in this country. And then, of course, we're doing some really cool things in Arkansas, which I'll mention more later. The rest of our team for this particular project will be Erica Burns, who is going to help us with some of all the planning and logistics of carrying such an important task out and doing it in a very logical way. She also has really been my key partner in doing strategic plans, which we're also getting very good at, which you'll hear about in a minute. And she had her doctorate in that type of work. Sarah Taylor is someone that we specifically added on for searches. She's had over a decade working on all sorts of different types of executive searches, both in education and outside of education. And she brings with her a whole set of tools that we think are really dynamic. I wish there was a way that we could show you the tools we're using in Jonesboro right now of vetting candidates and supporting them, and then also supporting the board. But we can't do that right now, as you all well know, with FOI type rules. And then, myself, I'm going to be the key face to work with and interact with all of you, should you choose our firm to do this type of work. And I think that that's worked in our favor, because when myself or a Dwight Jones, in terms of who we are as educators, say that we're going to be the face of a project, that can mean something to folks, and I hope it does to you. I've enjoyed my time as a part of the state of Arkansas now for just over 13 years, and obviously been the superintendent of Little Rock School District and then in the Bentonville system. So our way that we try to approach this, our values, our work, the first thing is that, again, the concept of saying who we are matters. I think it should matter to you because, the key thing in any type of work that involves looking for a superintendent, doing strategic planning, providing support to districts, there has to be relationships and there has to be trust. If that's not in place, then you're going to end up with all sorts of flaws throughout the process that's going to drive people crazy and cause tension. So our thing is to make sure that our relationships and our connections are at the most upper level. We have developed a process that we really think is going to support superintendents and boards, and that's how we got into this business. We didn't really get into it to say we're going to go be a search firm. We didn't really get into it to say we're going to go do strategic plans. What ended up happening is that as we listened to boards and we listened to superintendents, there were these themes that just kept coming out and saying, here's what we need help with. Some of it was with board governance, okay? The superintendents were having challenges saying, how do I make sure that, we have the board doing the right work? But guess what? Sometimes the superintendent wasn't doing the right work to support the board. And so we helped the superintendent with that to make sure that the superintendent can come across in a way to be supportive. We also know that as a part of the way that you do work in terms of relationships, recruitment is a critical end. And I'm very proud of the recruitment that we've done for the Jonesboro. Before I ever got hired as their search firm, I already had 15 preferred candidates to bring to the table to say, here's 15 names that were real, both in-state and out-of-state, that could be a part of a search process. And the recruitment of those individuals were going to fit Jonesboro, just like I will do the same thing for you, that the recruitment will fit Pulaski County, okay? That's really important because each district is unique, each community is unique, and in your case with Pulaski County, you have some uniqueness, as you all well are aware, in terms of your breadth of complexity, in terms of how each community functions and then tries to come together. We also know that our work, we found being able to provide board training, so we can do that. And actually, even as a part of this process in Jonesboro, that board actually received board training hours as they did their search because we also did training right along with it. So it's kind of got to be one of those hand in hands. You can contact Jonesboro board members to see how that's gone. Doing strategic plans, again, came from a superintendent that said, I think this is what we need. We dived into it, and since then, we're doing strategic plans all over the country. But here in Arkansas, we've done Russellville, we've done Jonesboro, and then we've probably got 2 or 3 others that are right there on the verge of starting to happen. And then finally, one other aspect of our work is to do program evaluation. That's probably important to remember kind of in the backdrop of once you've selected a superintendent, sometimes a superintendent comes in and says, I'm hearing one thing from staff, I'm hearing another thing from the board, I'm hearing another thing from the community about a different department or aspect or function of what runs the school district, and sometimes you need some sort of evaluation, a third eye to come in. And we've done that in districts here in Arkansas multiple times, and that's worked out well as in larger districts like St. Louis and Kansas City. So the way that we go about our search, we want to make sure that we're very collaborative with you, and we want to adapt. And so when we get to the timeline tonight, I watched your board meeting from the previous board meeting, and it was very clear that you wanted to move. And to be honest with you, you need to move quickly because the competitiveness of a superintendent search in context with other searches that are going on in this country, and then also right here in Arkansas, there's a lot happening already. So you have to move quickly. But you all were very clear in your intentionality to say, we want real reach out into our communities. So when you get to our timeline, you'll see that we're already listening to you in terms of an aggressive timeline. It's going to be different than maybe what a traditional search firm would represent to you, but it's what we think could work in terms of honoring what you're saying and us taking advantage of that and trying to come up with a plan. We're always going to be very comprehensive and thorough. As you look at what we're doing in Jonesboro, I think you would find that from every single board member to say we're so pleased with what's happened up to this point. And then we're going to make sure that we do everything right in terms of being transparent and then making sure that we align with the targets and mission that you and your community have set. So our approach is making sure, again, that we're tied in with you as a board and understanding what you're after. We're going to harness the power of our national network, which is pretty extensive. And when it came down to not only having 15 preferred candidates, our network of pushing out through everything from LinkedIn to a variety of other search tools that we use. I'm not going to say those things because I think they're unique, but some of those search tools that we're pushing out, it ended up netting us over 43 candidates within less than a month of posting the job. Out of that 43, we have already eliminated 14 people that just did not have the credentials, and now we're working through interviews so that we can get to a place, because what we promised the Jonesboro board is that we would come in February with 5 candidates that we thought were their fit. The board will then determine who their 2 or 3 people are that are going to come forward to be in the finals. The process that we use for screening, every single time that we have a candidate do something, they are being judged and critiqued, and there is a rubric that's been established to make sure that we can score candidates. So that when it gets to the end, when it comes to you, that you can see on any one of those stages where that person ranked in terms of our findings of being looking at candidates through the lens of what was expected on each area of the search. And we know that one of the things we're going to pride ourselves in, and I'm going to personally take great pride if you do select us, is me working with you very directly to make sure we meet each of your needs and that you're able to contact with us, and we're going to be proactive in our communication to you. So our process is one that we want to, first off, build a profile of a superintendent. That is time we need to spend with you. We also know that we want to start beginning recruiting immediately, and then we also want to screen candidates through the board and community vision. What we heard from you in that last board meeting is, again, you want us to get into the community, you want us to have opportunities for people to share what they're looking for. We actually think we can start that work even after we've posted the job, which is where the next slide will go. We'll conduct all sorts of different performance-based tasks. Those are everything from videos to specific questions geared towards Pulaski County realities so that they can respond to those in writing, and then they also would have to go through verbal interviews with us. So there's a variety of things that we're going to put them through. They need to be put through the ringer, in my opinion. You need to put someone through the ringer because this is not an easy job. And so you have to have people that have a little bit of staying power. They have to be able to communicate effectively through a variety of channels. We think that we can do that through our search process. Finally, our timeline is that, we were hoping that if it's possible, you all make a decision. Let's just say, I'm pushing you a little bit maybe, but that's me, and I think it's you, push you a little bit to say January 21st. We could have you all come to an agreement. We get to launch this immediately. We actually would push out a posting on the 24th, and you say, well, how can we push out a posting when you haven't even met with us? Well, the key is to get out on the market and make people aware, and there already are people in Arkansas that are talking about this. There was a candidate that I can tell you, and actually 2 candidates that backed out of our Jonesboro thing once they heard that your job was going to open and said, Mike, if you get this, I hope you're calling me, let me know about it. But to be honest with you, that same person might have talked to Dr. Williams as well. But the reality is that we can get this out there and then do some of the back work with the community to provide the profile, because that 1 month time, in some ways, that's a little bit of a lost time with, you're out there, you're posting it in all sorts of different places. People are going to get to see it. We can actually backfill in the expectations that you all have at that later stage, and we can provide enough information that will get them excited. And I don't really worry about having a really strong slate of candidates that could be put together and packaged for you, and we start to get into screening before spring break, and then being able to come back with engagement, with all of you right around that spring break time period, and then actually could have a finalist of selection for you in April. that's our plan to try to conduct this. The only other thing that I will bring forward is the concept that with our organization, as we built this, we tried to be really intentional about the concept that, you know, at each one of these stages, wherever you use us or pick us, it almost overlaps into some of the other work we do. So with the superintendent search, it's really an ideal time for you all to also examine doing a strategic plan. And I don't know, to be honest with you, when the last time this district did a strategic plan, but it's really good practice to have as a new person comes on to develop those goals and targets. And with the work that we do with strategic plans, that then allows you all to create some measurements where you can actually evaluate your superintendent on real targets and goals. The other thing that we do is we do executive coaching and mentorship. So we do coaching and mentorship with superintendents here in this state. We do them in a variety of other spots all over the country. And the cool thing about that is that in our state, the Arkansas Administrator Association provides a mentor, and that expectation is to meet at least 6 times. Well, with us, we set up a meeting. It could be weekly, it could be bi-weekly, depending upon what the superintendent wants, but to have that direct support on a regular basis and just allowing them to talk and work through things, but then for us always to remind them of all the things they need to be proactive with in terms of their communication. The advantage of what we have with Dwight Jones and myself of being superintendents for so long in multiple districts, we can bring forward a lot of things to make sure that we can be proactive, and especially with their work with the board. And then, again, that concept of being able to do some program evaluation as possible, and finally, just continue board training if that's something that you'd like. I'll stop there. Appreciate this, Mr. Delaney and members of the board, and see if you have any questions.
Board?
What is your timeline for Jonesboro?
Our timeline for Jonesboro, we got that job in the 1st of December and posted it through the holiday. We will be bringing in candidates on February 11th to their board meeting. That would be candidates, meaning that we have a board liaison that is going to actually bring the names and the information in. The board will then work with their own board member. That's the method they chose to use, and whittle it from 5 down to 2 or 3 people. Then we look at doing final round interviews in the community at the end of February. So we were able to pull off this 3-month span, just kind of like what we're talking about with you all.
So you're taking their 43 minus 14, I'm not doing math today, but you're taking those and whittling it down to 5?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the most the best thing I can tell you that we've been able to tell the board is that we're going to make it really hard on them, and it's going to be really hard on us. We have 15 legitimate candidates that we think we could put in front of a board today. So we're going to have to whittle it down into 5. And again, that's a part of our national reach. It's also the part of superintendents gravitating towards the model that we've presented to them of how we're going to conduct this, how we're going to communicate with them. The internal candidates, I've lived that myself one time where I felt I was not treated right in Colorado Springs by the large church. I ended up taking second in that search. That was the board's decision, and I think they probably made the right decision for themselves, but I know I didn't get treated the same way as all the rest of the candidates. We will make sure internal candidates are taken care of in a solid way. We'll make sure in-state, out-of-state, everybody will be treated in a very fair manner.
In your 40-something people, what is the location spectrum like from New Hampshire to, like, the broadness? How far, or are they more around the state of Arkansas?
We just provided the board a pretty big report big meaning that it's not narrow and down into maybe exactly what you're asking for.
Just locations of them currently.
But we had 50% of our candidates are internal to the state.
Okay.
Okay, and then the rest were out of state. But we had people from Texas, Colorado, Missouri, New York. I'm trying to think what other states. I'm missing 2 other states. I think Washington, Kansas. And so we have a really nice mix. The mix between male and female almost was, that was in a good place on gender. Ethnicity also was a nice blend. Those who were superintendents and those who have not been superintendents. The size of the districts, we measure those two of where they're coming from. So under 5,000, 5,000 to 15,000, and then 15,000 larger. And it's really strange that each time that I mention one of those things that you could measure, they're almost split like you'd want them. It's that we didn't anticipate, but it happened.
So is there like an addendum sheet that has costs that I'm not seeing, or is that something you?
I think that's going to depend on a little bit of time that we would need to spend with the board in terms of, how much you want us to do and so forth. But we're ready to talk cost at any point. And I don't know whether that's appropriate to do right now because it kind of is in a weird situation for us as two search firms of what that cost would be. But
Could you just do it like this to just explain? You kind of heard me try to characterize last time that there's a base fee and then there's the expenses and things like that. Just could you structure it generically like that just to understand how it functions without getting into the
yeah, Mr. Delaney
price?
really covered this pretty well in terms of saying that, with searches, if you have to bring people in from out of state, you have travel cost, meaning that the search firm, and in this case, you will not, because I'll be the person that'll be the boots on the ground. That goes for McPherson as well. But, what you will find on a search for a district this size is that the price range is going to vary from probably 25,000 to as much as 40 to 45,000. That would be at the upper end. A lot of those things are dependent on when search firms do their total. They think a lot about how much time and how many days they will be spending in the district, especially with community engagement and so forth. And again, for us, that cost gets minimized because I'll be the person here helping and doing those types of things.
So the number 5, when you say you whittle it down to 5, is that a standard or is that something the group decides? I mean, for me, if you had 15 good people, I would rather see the 15 people myself rather than have you whittle them down. I don't know what everyone else feels, but.
Yeah, it's a great question, and that was the time we spent with the board, working collectively together for them to come up with that number.
So it varies.
So that it can vary. And you can also have different stages of an interview, so you may do, if you did one like you're suggesting where you had, let's just say 10 candidates that you brought in, then you whittled it down to 2. The one thing that's a challenge about that I'll make you think about a little bit is that when a sitting superintendent puts their name in for a job and then they have to go through multiple rounds of interviews, that puts them in a very precarious position within their own district. And so what typically happens is that boards and superintendent search firms try to minimize that so that that person's name does not become public until there is a time when you know that they're going to be a finalist. So that's something to kind of munch on or think about.
So we couldn't do that ourselves, make their name
You
only if
can.
they were a finalist? Yeah.
You can. It just is, it can, in some ways, make some candidates shy away from it because they're like, wow, if they're not going to get any closer to that, I'm not going to throw myself in, and it's such a wide net. They might be cautious of that.
Because in Arkansas, there are some states that allow you to keep the names confidential all the way through to the very end. But in Arkansas, that is not something search firms can use. You also cannot come into executive session with us to talk about these candidates either. So there are some limitations here in terms of the Arkansas regulatory environment, shall we say, when it comes to searches.
That's absolutely correct.
And your candidates are going to want to understand the mechanics of what you're doing with respect to like when would I come here and things like that. That they're smart enough to understand what that all means or whatever, and they're going to check with you probably about all that, right?
And that's one of the things we've told the candidates in our current searches, we will make sure you're not caught off guard. So even doing background checks, there's a timing to that, because as soon as you do it, then that creates sometimes a very bad situation in their home district. And to be honest with you, you've all felt that, right? you have felt that with your previous superintendent, through the search, that you're like, whoa, what's happening here? And so, there's all sorts of ways you can look at that, but one of the things is that you want to make sure that there's a real intent, that we've got the strong possibility that these 3 people, these 2 people, these 5 people, whatever that number is that the board is dead serious that they think you're a legitimate candidate.
Other questions? I have one. Every search firm has their own peculiarities, of course. We had a search firm that used a matrix or whatever, essentially, like it was called a forced choice matrix. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but essentially it was like a rubric, but it essentially, board members all filled them out individually, and then I was here when this happened, and they brought it out to the search firm, and then they calculated everything, and then essentially said, here are your choices. So it wasn't like the board was back there, to my understanding, and just voting who their semifinalists were or whatever like that. Do you use any kind of system like that, or do you just let the board go back there and, what's that process? Can you kind of get into the mechanics of how the board gets to its finalists? Because I think there was some consternation at the time among board members of that sort of process, because it wasn't clear how we ended up with the finalists that we did. So I'm curious how that works.
First, we would arm you with all the different layers that we've previously talked about of what candidates will go through. And that's everything from their paperwork to their the background checks that we've done. Not just the background checks of the people that they've said, here's the folks that will be our reference, but also background checks into their social media and all the other aspects of what can be out there to look into a leader. It's also about ranking people in terms of their the questions that we ask them to answer in terms of a written form, ways that they did their interviews. We do one-on-one interviews just to weed out candidates that we're not sure, we don't know them very well, to try to see whether or not they're strong. Then we do interviews. We're just getting ready to start those tomorrow with Jonesboro, of interviews that I will conduct with one of my other colleagues, where it's just the 2 of us asking real questions that really center on some of the things that matter most to Jonesboro. And we put those all into a database. It's all driven with rubrics. So there's all that information that then, when we get down into that final place where you're getting to make those decisions, you have all that background information. As you develop your questions, we work with you to help on that in terms of making sure that, we have the right questions that you've brought forward previously with your community, and you're going to have your own opinions about that. We're not trying to change or shape you in the questions you want to ask, but we also want to make it so that there's a way that you can put that also into a form of a rubric, so that you can rank, and that helps create a score that helps unify the board and look at the numbers in a more deep way.
So you do have some mechanism that can help boards
That's
get
correct.
to. Now, if the board wanted to, maybe, I don't know if it's the old-fashioned way or whatever, is simply just sit back there in the room and vote on, the 3 finalists or whatever, so it was more clear. Is that something that you would advise against boards to not follow whatever you called it, clarifies to the board where it is?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question, Mr.
Well, so let's say, for example, that the board goes back with semifinal, like a set of semifinalists, and they have to come out with a set of finalists.
Okay.
And to get from semifinalists down to finalists, at one time, this board in the past had a sheet that essentially everybody had their own, and then there was some computation that was done, and then the search firm essentially told you, here are your 3 finalists, and then they went with it. But it wasn't clear who voted for whom or any of that sort of stuff. Can the board have a process where it essentially just sits back there and decides these, in consensus or whatever, here's our 3, without going through like a math problem or something?
I think that's totally up to the board,
Okay.
and you all get to make that decision. We can help guide that a little bit, but you want transparency inside your board, because the more you do that, the greater chance it is that you come out as a unified board to say, here's we're behind this individual 100%.
Okay, so there's some flexibility with your process in terms of how the board
That's
can determine who its finalists are. That doesn't involve a set mechanism or something.
That's absolutely correct. And I hope we use those terms early in the presentation to say, you
Yeah,
know, we want
right.
to adapt to what the board wants to have to make sure that the process works for you.
Okay. How difficult do you think it is for a board that doesn't have goals or a strategic plan? This board is one of those, okay? To do a superintendent search if it's starting from, with not having them, essentially.
Well, I think that one of the things that would happen if you started the discussion just on a strategic plan, but you do the same thing with the superintendent search, is you start to talk about what are your priorities, and doing that collectively. But then we found it also valuable to have individual meetings with board members. So we did one-on-one meetings with the board members as well. And that allowed them, it was interesting because as they talked, some of them I think felt like they were really divided, but once we got to talk to them as individuals, we created a package that said, you're actually on the same page of some of the things that you're seeking and wanting. So without a strategic plan, the conversations that we have together, if you hire us, and then those things will drive some things that are going to be very specific to say, these are the things that we are looking for. These are the skill sets that we think we most need right now in this district. This is the type of background that we hope this individual has. And those are the things then we go target our recruitment.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Wait, sorry, Dr.
Question.
Go ahead.
Would there be any way, let's say, like in the case of, was it Jonesboro that said that you said you have 15 candidates, it's gonna be really difficult to choose between those 15 who you present as the 5 finalists. Would there be any way for us to be able to see resumes with names redacted so that we don't know who those people are? Just out of curiosity, just so that we can see qualifications and still keep their identity confidential so that they don't have any problems with their home districts.
It's probably a fine line there. I think that my response would be that we can pull out from candidates, some of those things that you're talking about that are the key qualifications, background, and be able to create a landscape of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I think we could do that.
Okay.
Last chance for Mr. Poor. Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you all
Poor.
very much.
All right, Dr. Williams. Thank you.
First of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk with you this evening. First, I'm going to share a little bit of information about me, and then I will move forward from there. I don't intend to read all of this booklet to you, but I'm going to hit on a lot of the highlights, which I feel like will let you be informed as to what services we provide and the way we conduct a search. I'm an Arkansan, been in this education business now about 54, 55 years. I've been fortunate enough to watch what's happened in Pulaski County from the Little Rock District taking a number of your schools away years and years ago to being a friend with Bobby Lester and talking with him about his experiences here and all the things that have happened to you. So I'm very familiar with your district, the peculiarities of it, 4 different communities, geographically, just spread everywhere. And I think it'll help me, and if we're fortunate enough to get this search and my colleague to be able to have that understanding as we work with candidates that apply for this position. Now, McPherson Jacobson, I want to talk to you a little bit about our firm, and I'll hit some of these things that will be included again, but in the packet. We've been in business since 1991, and our home base is in Omaha, Nebraska. The owner of our firm, the original owner has passed away, and now Mr. Ryder, who Dr. Poore was complimenting as one of his former colleagues, is the owner of our firm now. Our firm has done over 1,000 superintendent searches, plus a number of other executive administrative searches for school districts and other entities such as departments of education, those type of things. We have over 130 plus consultants. These are not full-time people. These are people that are retired like me, some practicing superintendents and others that assist us with this process. This network is expansive all over the United States. We have worked in 43, 44 states plus DC, and currently we're working in about 33 states from year to year. It'll vary from state to state, but we have currently been active in about 33 states. Our consulting network is very, very strong. We use consultants, our colleagues in other states, our consultants to gather information about when we're vetting candidates, which we think is very, very powerful. It really helps us when we start that vetting process. On the page number 3, I want to just start hitting on some highlights of the things, and this will guide me so I don't ramble at all as we speak. But one thing that we provide you as a board is the element of time. My assumption would be that most of all of you are gainfully employed, and you do not have the time that it takes to coordinate and create a search which has commonality throughout it. You have 7 different board members vetting different applicants, things like this. It goes berserk, and we know that. So we provide you that element of time. Our process is very comprehensive. We're going to cover all bases for you, and we're going to provide you support as we go through this process. The foundation of the search will be what we call the selection criteria, which that you will determine through whatever process and we will adapt that to you, such as, does the board just decide what the selection criteria might be? Or do you want to start with a survey very quickly, gather community input, and then combine that with what the board values and the things that they think are very important to this district and create what we call a selection criteria? That is the basis for the search in the fact that it becomes part of our application process, it becomes part of our vetting process, and consultants, we will know what questions to ask to start probing when we start interviewing these applicants or candidates. We will interview them right up front and find out just if they have any of these qualities that you're looking for. And that's part of the process of eliminating it down to a smaller number. Transparency. Being transparent in Arkansas is sometimes difficult to do because we have a very strict FOI law, and we're going to follow that. We're not going to do anything that that's not ethical or not abide by the FOI. We're going to represent you as a board in a very respectful manner as we do that, and also to the candidates that apply for this position. We actively recruit candidates just like any other firm does, but we also are very, very sensitive to being respectful to anyone that makes an application to a job. Everyone that applies will get the same equal treatment in the beginning, and then as we start narrowing it down based on personal interviews, and we start the vetting process more extensively, and then we do some other things to add to the things that we feel like are of value. We will interview all candidates, and this is very important early in the process. We also, after the search is complete, we do offer an additional phase, which we call Phase 5, which is not part of our basic search, which allows the board to create an evaluative tool to work with the superintendent and let them know what they value and what they want him or her to concentrate on in their first year serving in the district. Moving on to page number 4. I mentioned briefly a little bit about McPherson Jacobson, but we are recognized as one of the leading top 3 search firms in the nation. This was a couple of years ago by AASA, and we were very proud of that honor. Another thing that we hang our hat on as a search firm is we have sustainability and leadership, which means that when we help a board, assist a board in the process of selecting a superintendent, it's almost like a marriage because there has to be some compatibility. And we try our best as we go through that search process to make sure there's compatibility. There's a lot of people that will apply for a position as this, that have the skill set and have some other things that are very high quality as far as being an administrator, but they might not be capable of working with you. The goal is to find one that has that skill set, the soft skills, all those things that are necessary to be successful here, that's compatible to you, and that's what you will end with as we finish this process. In regards to leadership and the length of tenure, nearly 80% of the individuals that we assist boards in selecting will be on the job for 5 years or longer. About 60% are there for 10 years or longer. That far exceeds the national average for the tenure of a superintendent. Depending on most urban districts, 3 years or less, and then you get the national average of all districts, and it's less than 4, according to the research. We do respect and promote recruiting applicants, so there is a diverse applicant pool. We value this. We feel like it's important, not only in ethnicity, but also in gender, and we've been successful in this in the searches that we do. Now, our search process on page 7, I think, is clearly defined, and I want to go through that and just give you an overview of all of the things that we will do as we do your search. Mainly 4 phases. Phase 1 is the step that I would say is so important that we begin immediately if we are fortunate enough to be selected to work with you. But that's where we're going to decide, or you're going to decide how you want to establish the selection criteria, whether you as a board want to do it or you want to do a survey and gather input from the community and use that along with the board to openly create selection criteria which will become part of the search. We're going to establish a timeline. The timeline I would establish, which I looked at today, is just guessing dates that would be applicable to this search. Depends, first of all, on when we start. If you wait 2 to 3 weeks to start, then that's going to delay things. But if we start immediately, then, and I'm not copying you, Mike, but we decided, I looked at the first week of April of being able to start finalizing it and conducting interviews. If it wasn't for spring break, it'd be quicker than that. Also, the board would need to determine how they want to advertise these positions. It's kind of interesting now because years ago, before the internet and all of those type things, you had to advertise nationally to get a national search. When it goes onto our website now, we get about 250,000 hits a month. 250,000 hits a month. And it becomes a national search the day that we post it. And we post it very quickly, even before we have the criteria up, the timeline, those things, just to make applicants aware. There's other things that we do in phase 1. We talk about stakeholder groups and how you want to, if you want to have stakeholder input. Now, in a district like this, it's not going to be as easy as it would in a small district of 1,500 students in one community where you got 3 or 4 schools. In your situation, it can be done a number of ways. The virtual opportunities would create a way of gathering a lot of input, and the logistics of that would be much easier than trying to assemble groups representative of teachers and students and other stakeholders. Doing it virtually would facilitate that. The only thing about that is it takes some organization to get that done, and we as the consultants would ask for an individual in the district to be our point of contact, which would work with us and getting all of these things done when the board directs us how they want to do that. The other thing is the point of contact, as I just mentioned, is a very important part of the search process because they help coordinate the logistical things that have to take place in the district, reminders of people that if there are going to be meetings, this type thing, and work with us in our home office. I failed to mention this a minute ago, but I think this is very important. Of these people that we have working with us as consultants, we have a home office of 3 people that do nothing but the administrative task of us running searches. So when we're running these searches, they do all of the things that make us as consultants look good by creating the things for us in a timely manner so we can get to it and not worry about the things behind the scenes. They take care of that for us. Phase 2 is the stakeholder input component, advertising position and recruiting applicants. We recruit applicants as well. And we're going to actively recruit within the state and out of state if we're fortunate enough to get this position. We do know that it's important for a candidate that's able to, that the board selects for this position to have an understanding of PCSSD, because it's different from many superintendent's positions, and this will be very important in doing this. We will meet with groups if you direct us to. We will meet with different groups face-to-face, interview them, gather their input, and then after we do this, face-to-face, virtually, however you want to do it, community groups, Chamber of Commerce groups, business groups, whatever, however you tell us you want this done, then we will create an executive summary of all the information we gain from this and share that with you in a report. We will take care of announcing the vacancy. We will advertise in any venue that you wish, but when you get outside of the things that I just mentioned locally in the state, School Board Association, AAEA, McPherson sites, Twitter, LinkedIn, some other things, then you've got a pretty good advertising venue. You can pay and get in AASA for virtually for 20 or 30 days, but it costs a few $100s to do those things. We will prepare and do the advertising for you when you tell us which way you want to go. We will develop an application that is unique to this vacancy. It will be, when applicants apply for this position, the first thing they will do is, when they finish that application, they will sign off if their name can be released. If they do not sign off to release their name, then they're not an applicant. This is necessary in Arkansas because the day that they sign that application and applications close, their name becomes public information. That's the first thing we do the day after it closes. It sends you, the board, a list of all the applicants and where they're from. Now, in time, even their application is subject to FOI with redacted information on it, as you're well aware, that has to be done, but that happens as well. The recruiting process for us, and one thing that we do is we have about 2,500 individuals that are registered with us that are looking for possible administrative jobs, different venues outside of the state where they're currently working, some within those states. We will send out, as soon as we have the application posted, we send out that confirmation to all of these individuals that have asked us to do that. We will communicate with the board members in a very timely manner. We ask that most of the communication be sent through Mr. Delaney. We will talk to any of you anytime, but we cannot start making changes or redirecting a search after we have directions from the entire board to meet one individual's needs. This is very, very important. Applicant screening. We will screen applicants, and we have a rubric by which we do this, questions that we ask every applicant when we personally interview them. Of course, they're going to give us some references, and you know what those references normally, not always, but most of the time, they're reasonably they're references that will be positive and give positive report on that individual. We'll ask them for names, then we'll talk to those individuals, and we'll ask additional individuals from those. We call that going 3 deep. The other thing that we do is we will go back through their work history, and we will talk with people that they never even thought or remembered that we will talk with in regards to their past performance. I always like to think that it's not a person that's not a good principal or not a good teacher can automatically become a good superintendent or central office administrator. And we try to talk with people back earlier in their career all the way through the different locations where they've worked. And we feel like this is very important in our reference work. When we complete that reference work and finish our vetting process, we create what we call a reference summary. And this is a summarized document which provides you feedback from the people that we've talked with these individuals that we are bringing to you that we feel like meet the criteria. Typically we do not have 10, 12 people that we feel like meet the criteria for most jobs. We will have anywhere from 4, 5, or 6, and wherever there's that cutoff in regards to what we feel like we've gained from reference summary, reference checks, and also all their performance in the past, then we will have that cutoff of a certain number of individuals, and we call them recommended finalists. When we bring to you recommended finalists, you still have the opportunity to question us about any applicant, and we can tell one board member at a time why that person was not in the final applicant pool as what we call a recommended finalist. And in that information, usually there's validation as to why we did not bring them forward. You may even know someone, and you say, golly, that'd be a good candidate. Well, when we start doing our reference work, we find out things which might not be positive for this Board of Education if it became public in the state newspaper. When we finish phase 3, that's where we spent most of our time. And that's when we start finishing up the vetting process, preparing the reference summaries. Then we check and make sure that we have got applicants we feel like that are still in the pool. I have vetted people in the past in certain searches, and they were all in, and after I spent hours vetting them, I make that final call the day before I take them before the board, and they backed out on me. So we're going to try our best to not allow anything like that to happen to you. We're going to bring valid finalists that we feel like that are informed about the position, and the board, the communities, all of these things, so that if they're fortunate enough to be interviewed and selected, then they will be able to perform for you. We also provide videos to the board of who we call recommended finalists. Now, there also could be Zoom meetings or whatever that the board chose in regards to screening applicants. That'd be strictly your choice. But when we typically come back to the board meeting that you select your finalists, we'll bring those reference summaries, videos of each one of them with a rubric of how to grade them and score them on the video. And that provides you a lot of insight into how that you want to make your final selection of who you want to interview. We also will assist the board in developing questions, and these questions are all aligned with your selection criteria. Plus, you still have the opportunity to add questions. We do not tell you which questions to ask. We'll give you a pool of a number of questions, and then we'll ask you to prioritize those questions, and we will create interview packets for you with a scoring rubric so you can score each individual that you interview. We take care of all of the arrangements of getting candidates to the district, all the work behind the scenes of getting them here, scheduling interviews, all those things, we do that. Now, if you decide to have stakeholder groups that actually interact with those candidates and do a very shortened or abbreviated interview with them, then we arrange that and have it arranged where that the individual that chairs that group is prepared and knows how to conduct the interview and lead it, so that everyone is, I guess you would say, compliant with laws in regards to what's legal and what's not legal. When we finish phase number 4, you will have completed, be ready to go into your interviews. When those are complete, then we advise you to make a final selection quickly as possible of your superintendent. You need to discuss the compensation parameters, packages, all of those compensation package before you ever get to that interview phase, so that you can share that information with the finalist in regards to terms of, I guess you would say, parameters, so that they know what to expect if they are offered the position. And the other thing that I will share with you is this: consultants, never make a promise to any applicant. We work for you. We do not tell the applicant, the candidates, the finalists, what the board will do. We know better than that. I'm not going to do that. So we're not going to tell them and guarantee them a salary or whatever. If you give us a range, then we'll use that as in our recruiting process and inform them of that. We do have a 2-year guarantee if you use our Phase 5. The Phase 5 is not part of our basic search package. When you select your new superintendent, if you decide that you want to do the Phase 5, then that'd be an addendum, I guess you would say, to the cost of our contract, which we'd come back before the beginning of the school year and try to have a joint meeting with you as a board and also the new superintendent, and collectively create performance goals for them, or so that they could be informed about what the board values. It's very important that you as a board communicate what you value and what you place priority on when you employ that individual. I believe those are most of the things that I was wanting to talk about, except just look at page 15, 16, and 17 gives you a good view of what's necessary to start from the very beginning of a search, the things that have to be addressed, what we do and what we have the district help us with, and the point of contact is the one that helps take care of what we call school district task. But there's certain things that has to be done by someone in district to help make this happen and move smoothly. People, one thing that we hang our hat on as a search firm is our stakeholder involvement. And over the years, we've changed how we've done that because we've adapted to things that allow us to do more than we could in the past, much quicker through virtual meetings, things like this. But we feel like that's very important, and we would adapt that to what your needs were. The only parameters that need to be considered about that is the length of time it takes to get it, because that needs to take place. If that's going to be the stakeholder input, it's going to be part of your selection criteria, which goes into formulation then of your application, all of those type things. That is about, well, look over on page 31. And I'll also mention that Mr. Wayne Gibson, who some of you may know from down at El Dorado, will also assist me with this search if we are fortunate enough to be selected. And also, if we get into the point where we need a third individual, Dr. Ken James is going to help. I talked with him yesterday, and he said he'd be available to help if we needed a third person because of multiple meetings or things that are happening at one time where two of us couldn't cover it. On page 31 is an example of a search instrument, a survey that we use to gather community input, and this is an example of a report from that. I know that the lettering is small, but I apologize for that, but that gives you an example of the things that, the information that we see through this, and this can be arranged and taken care of very quickly if we are selected. We'd get this, if you wanted to use this to gather input from stakeholders, then we'd use this and get it done very quickly. I have been fortunate enough to work for McPherson Jacobson now for about 14 or 15 years. I just did a count today. I've done 62 searches in Arkansas from districts of 300 or less to up to 10 or 12,000. So I am familiar with the process. I also wrote my dissertation back just a few years ago on the selection process of superintendents and did a 3-state study in regards to superintendent selection. So I've always had an interest in this. It's enjoyable to me, and that's the reason I guess I just keep on doing it. Any questions of me? I would appreciate questions from you.
Community involvement is just extremely important to me. Getting the feedback from our parents and our staff and maybe even potentially our students. So when a survey is sent out, like the one that's listed on page 31,
Yes.
is the same survey sent to parents, staff members, and potentially students? Or are they
excuse me.
tailored?
They are, the same survey is sent, but we ask them to tell us who they are. And then we break it down in regards to groups that respond to it. Teachers, administrators, parents, business people, whatever it might be, then we'll be able to categorize that based upon where they're coming from in regards to their response.
And it is set up for only a one-time response per person, right? What I don't want is one person going in there and taking the survey 10 times.
I have not asked that question, but I will.
Okay.
I apologize for not knowing that now. I'd hate to say yes, because I see where you're coming from, but I don't know if there's a safeguard on that or not. If it did, it would have to be from the same email address or something of that nature, I'm guessing.
Okay. And what is the most common way to get community involvement, or is there a combination?
Well, in a small district, we'd do it where we'd have face-to-face meetings with various groups, such as, we even have a student group meeting at sometimes in districts. We do administrators, certified staff, classified staff. We have a community meeting at night where you only have one community and invite anyone that wants to come to that. And we typically run a survey for a week after that. But if you're looking for that community stakeholder input to influence your selection criteria, then that would need to get moving quickly, and you'd probably use this K-12 Insight Survey report to gather that information that you'd have access to when you as a board determined what you wanted to use as selection criteria. It would take, if you waited till you had some face-to-face meetings, virtual meetings with staff, the logistics of getting all of this organized and set up would delay getting started, the search getting started as quickly as we want.
Would you, we have a very diverse district that's
Yes, ma'am.
spread out. Would you be able, through a survey, to tell us where the respondents, which feeder pattern they came from, so we can make sure that we're getting enough feedback from individual feeders?
I'll have to get back with you on that, because I can't tell you right now, but we will. I'm not a technical person, and I can't answer questions in regards to how you're going to set up the logistics of creating that survey and how it would work. I apologize for that. Any other questions you might have?
I guess I just have the same question. I mean, to me, the vaguity, I would like, you know, a ballpark figure of what the base is and what that base includes. And if you do this, then that, you know, cost is that. I mean, I don't like this open-ended, could cost anything kind of discussion.
If you look on page 23, we define what our expenses are, the range. We also, like, for example, stakeholder meetings, 2 days of person-to-person stakeholder meetings are part of our basic fee structure. Then if you go beyond that, then we will, it's a mutual agreement between the consultant and the district of what the charge would be. We have our price stated at the very top of this. Since Mr. Ford did not mention his price, I will just leave mine as it is there. And you see what our total would be with the expenses unless we expand it beyond what those services are.
And the additional phase 5, where does that fit into that number?
That would be an additional that we would add after the search was complete, $2,000 for phase 5.
Okay.
Just looking at my notes, I had Mr. Poor saying somewhere between 25 and 45 was a fair range to set expectations around for a superintendent search. Does that sound like something you would agree with for your circumstances? 25
We
to 45?
state with our search, with the parameters that we established in this packet, then it will not be above, that would be a little bit more than we would be charging.
Okay. If the board, and a lot of this the board would have some control over in terms of how, the expense piece of it.
Sure they would.
And
Yes, they would.
what, in your experience, what really gets the cost going up on the optional expenses that you've seen that boards would take advantage of?
Okay, number one, if you wanted more consultant time in the district beyond the 2 days, consultants being present when you do your interviews, those type things where you got consultants' time. Our time is what would add up to the expense.
Well, so we might want that actually, depending, because did you have a sense of how many community meetings? I didn't look in here. What did you budget for community meetings that McPherson Jacobson would host?
Well, we would have 2 days scheduled for that, and we would ask you to help us schedule, or you schedule who you want us to meet with, where, and what time. And then 2 of us would be there. Then if we start bringing in another consultant, it'd be additional cost for that even if we went beyond the 2 days too.
But if we, for example, if we decided that what would work best is because we have 4 high schools.
Right.
And had four meetings, because we call them feeder patterns or whatever,
Right.
but 4 meetings. And they might need to be on separate days, because I don't know that you can get from West Little Rock to Sherwood or, Mills to Maumelle, for example. And we needed them on multiple days or something. That might just be an additional cost based on the characteristics of this district, right?
Now, we'd be logical too that if it's only a community meeting at night, we would not call that a full day.
Yeah, okay, right.
And if you schedule your meetings at night, then there might be 4 night meetings, but we might have less time during the day, which it'd be fair to just equate that to the 2 full days.
So while it is difficult to just pin down to the penny what it will cost at this point, it is fair to say that really you run into it's hard to really do an extreme amount of spending at the high end of the range, like let's say $75,000, $100,000. What would it even take to get to $75,000 to $100,000 in total costs?
I can't answer
imagine.
that because
Yeah,
I've never even
yeah,
thought of that
You've
or
never
even
you've never
experienced
seen
anything
it.
like
Essentially,
that.
that's what I was trying to get out of you is that you've never seen a search that costs 75 or whatever, right?
I tell you what, I'm old school and an old school superintendent, and I'm very thrifty with other people's money.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I look at the expenses and this type of thing. I probably take better care of the school's money than I did my own.
Well, if we have people watching out there, I'll just give my opinion. I think 25 to 45 is probably the fair range for both of these, but it also depends on choices we make as a board and a
Yes.
district on how we do this.
Yes.
So, to me, it's not bound in a certain, to the penny, but you're gonna run into a problem probably getting above 50 under a,
Well, I will tell you that unless you want me to live with you for 2 weeks, our fees will not be up to $50,000.
okay, all right. Other questions?
I saw in the news that y'all were contracted to do Fort Smith.
Yes.
So is that gonna pull from the same pool of candidates, considering they're the same size as we are?
You just don't know because of, Fort Smith is, went out of state for their last superintendent, went into Texas. You don't know about in-house candidates, this type thing. I'm gonna I work with the consultant doing that search. We're trying to negotiate the contract right now. That's where we are with Fort Smith, but I don't know what the result of that's gonna be.
But it's probably fair to say that that Fort Smith and Pulaski County are similarly sized. Fort Smith's about 13,000. We're a little under 12,000. So they look kind of the same, if you're just paying attention to numbers, but
They're not.
underneath the hood, these
They're
districts are very different.
Vastly different.
And Fort Smith is on the Oklahoma line. They're gonna pull from Texas. We're in the middle of the state. Fort Smith is a single community. We're multiple communities. But you don't think it would hurt this district? I mean, I guess, it's not, logistically, you can do both searches, right?
Right.
And there might even be some, because you're gonna be, there might be some overlap in the candidate pool, not fully
It
overlap.
depends on the
but-
flexibility of the candidate and what they're looking for and their past in regards to experiences related to this district, related to that district.
But you gave us, there are names in here, multiple consultants with your company, so it's not impossible, like, physically for you to do both searches.
I
Yeah.
will not lead another search. If I do this search, I will not lead another search. I'll just lead this search.
Okay.
And you might notice one other thing, and this is minor, but I think it's kind of interesting, is you'll notice the number of searches that are repeated searches for us. We've got a number of districts in Arkansas that have used us 2 times. We've got one that's used us 4. And every 3 years, they end up getting a need for a new superintendent because we were fortunate enough to help them find someone that moved to promoted to a much higher position, either at the State Department or something else every 3 years. That happened every 3 years for 4 times in sequence.
And so some of these districts, it's almost, they're not necessarily always expecting to have, they're hoping, but they're not expecting to have like a Bobby Lester type person that sits at a district for 20 years, for example, or something like that, because of just the nature of these jobs when you're in the middle of the pool of districts, right? They're gonna,
What you would hope to happen is you have someone that everybody wants.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's your job as a board to take care of them and keep them if you want to keep them.
that's a good point, because it's a good problem to have
It's a
if
good
somebody
problem
is
to
that attractive of a candidate
That's right.
that other districts are trying to take them. Okay, and then, that's a great way to put it, actually. Last questions for Dr. Williams?
Thank you very much
Okay.
for allowing me this time. I also failed in the mission to thank Mr. Poore for the complimentary remarks he made in regards to our firm, and known Michael ever since he's been in Arkansas.
Okay, all right, so, the way we have our setup here is that, there's gonna be a discussion later on in the meeting about
Yes.
how we want to get to a decision. So you're welcome to stay for that, or you can leave, and then I would inform both of you
Okay.
of any kind of outcomes there, all
Okay,
right?
very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that finishes our special presentations, but we have some minutes to approve. So I will take a motion on the December 10th, 2024 minutes.
Motion.
Dr. Tate has made a motion to approve December 10th. Is there a second?
Second.
Potter has seconded. Discussion. Okay, I'll put December 10th to a vote. All in favor of December 10th, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next, we have January 2nd. I'll take a motion on January 2nd.
Motion.
Ms. Potter has made a motion on January 2nd, 25. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Maynard has seconded. Discussion? Okay, I'll put that to a vote. All in favor of approving January 2nd, 25, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. And the last one is January 7th, 25. I'll take a motion on that.
Motion.
Ms. Smith has made a motion to approve January 7th, 25. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Potter has seconded. Discussion? Okay. I'll put that to a vote. All in favor of January 7th, 25, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right.
Mr. President?
Yes.
If you wouldn't mind, could you consider suspending the order to let the stock market gain go?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, good point.
Thank you.
Let's get our stock market people up here. Dr. Whitfield.
It always brings me pleasure to focus on our why, and that's the work and the reward that goes on in the classrooms every day. So because of our partnership with Economics Arkansas, not only are our teachers given a plethora of staff development, but our teachers have the ability to participate in contests. And one of my favorite, and theirs too, is the stock market game, which teaches them the principles of savings and investing, and also math skills, business skills, communication skills, economic principles, learning to make decisions, analyze information. So tonight I have, and it's really a good feeling because it's rare that we have the number 2 winner and the number 1 winner in our district in the same school, but in the same teacher classroom. So Arkansas had 2,399 teams. 102 of those teams were elementary teams. And 2 of those teams are here tonight to talk about their strategy. They may even get some tips of how they became team number 2 and team number 1 in Arkansas. So their teacher serves as the advisor, helping them research. But the beauty of that is learning to pay attention to current events that might affect the market. So they have to become aware of and pay attention to current events and think about what's going on in the world, in our nation, and in our community that would affect the stock market. So I'm very proud of Mr. Staswick and his teams. So we have representatives from both of those teams. Come on up, guys. Who are going to talk briefly. But the winning team started out with a portfolio of $100,000. So within weeks, a couple of months, they grew that to $136,778.31. So quite a return.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce these really incredible students to you. This August, I had the privilege of joining Baker Elementary and really just a phenomenal team of educators there. And these students' accomplishments, they certainly speak to their own achievements, but they really speak to a legacy of instruction at Baker. Looking for elementary jobs, economics was not something that was on my radar. And I was really intrigued by the program Baker had, and I've just consistently been incredibly impressed with the financial literacy, the understanding of economic concepts that these students display at such a young age. And I really think that instruction is setting them up for just an incredible future. I'd definitely like to acknowledge a couple people. I'm sure there's many who've gone before, but in my time at Baker, Miss Jamie Garman and Miss Nikisha Cunningham serve as our master economics teachers. They work tirelessly to instill a legacy of economics education at Baker. I'd also like to acknowledge Miss Marsha Masters from Economics Arkansas, who supports teachers across the region. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Valencia Essel, our principal at Baker, for never saying no to a new teacher coming to her and saying, hey, I want to do this, as long as it extended our students' economic education. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to Arjun, Sammy, Bihan, and Emerson, who are going to share a little bit about their experience with the program.
Good evening. We would like to thank everyone on the board for being here today. It is an honor to have been given the opportunity to participate in this program. Tonight we would like to discuss the experiences in the stock market game program and some of the reasons we were successful. The stock market game allowed us to participate in a simulated trading environment over the fall semester. Students here represent the first and second place regional winners out of over 100 teams. Now Sammy will tell you about our strategies.
One of the strategies was to use diversification. Diversification is an investment strategy that involves spreading investments across various types to reduce risk. By doing so, we reduced reliance on any single investment, which helped our portfolio. Our main strategy was to find a stock that was linked to Bitcoin. Eventually, we found a stock MicroStrategy. This allowed us to make a lot more money because MicroStrategy uses leverage to buy more Bitcoin. Now Vian will speak.
One thing that helped us with the stock market game was that we had enough time during our school period for our stock market game. This also allowed us to work together and learn from each other. Another thing that helped us with the stock market game was that having enough time to be journaling weekly. These journals also helped us keep track and reflect on our trading choices. Now Emerson will speak.
Baker prepared us for the stock market game because every Friday, K through 5th grade, we were taught concepts and principles of economics, which taught us how to manage our money. We also had parents that came and told us about their jobs in a wide range of fields. These experiences prepared us for the stock market game because we could go in with a good understanding of financial systems.
Overall, the stock market game was a good experience to learn. I hope other kids will get to have the opportunity to enjoy the stock market game like we did. Thank you for your time and good night.
Wow.
So they will be treated to a very special and fancy luncheon in a few weeks, and we're just very proud of the work that they're doing at such a young age.
Okay, thank you.
That is a very impressive group of kids right there. Good job, guys.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, y'all.
Just want to tell the board my son was a part of that in 2018 and he won too, so it was awesome.
Is he in best for you?
Well, you know Shannon Hum, she did it at
Yeah.
Sylvan Hills when it was just the middle school, so yeah, it's really cool.
Okay, thank you all and Dr. Whitfield. Our next item, and Mr. Keller for making that call. Our next item on the agenda is the certified PPC presentation. No, not tonight.
I'd just like to say welcome back, Dr. Getz.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Classified PPC. Don't see Mr. Chesterfield here. Okay, that brings us down to reports. School Board Appreciation Month with Ms. Duff. Okay, we'll come back to her. Ms. Rowlett, financial reports.
Good evening, Dr. Guest, Board. I have the financial report for finance period 6, month of December. These are our legal funds, funds 1, 2, and 4. Fund 1 being teacher salary fund, Fund 2 being operating, and Fund 4 being the debt service funds. These are the funds that the state looks at to determine our physical health. And as you can see, we had a nice beginning balance of 37.7 million. Our current month expenditures were 11.6, current month revenue 3.6. Our categorical fund balance is 1.3. I'll just remind you all what the categorical funds are. They are our ESSA, our ALE, our ELE, and our professional development funds. So we have to deduct whatever balance is out of our gross legal, that gives us our net legal. Our net legal for the month of December was 28.7. Our current tax revenue for this year, our current tax year-to-date for this year, 70 million. Last year, year-to-date, was 64 million. We're up 8.4% in tax collections. And those funds, overall revenue increase is 7.5. Our current food service balance in December was 1.7 million. Are there any questions?
Did you ever get the collection rate versus?
Well, we'll
what
get
was
that at the end of the year. They normally give you those at the end of the year.
Okay.
That's the collection rate.
You're talking about the fiscal year for this district? Or
Yeah,
the
yeah. You
not
won't
the
get that-
calendar year, the
No,
fiscal
not
year.
calendar year, they'll give us those in December, so we don't have those yet. They're probably still calculating
Yeah.
that. No, I don't have them yet from the assessor's office, collection office. Yes. But as I told you all, when I presented the budget, our average collection rate over the past 4 years was 97.4.
I talked to Jack Trumper about a lot of things in the last few days, and that was one of the things I asked him, was the collection rate for the district, because I was concerned about what that collection on the mills above the uniform rate of tax would be. And as Ms. Rowlett said, he said it's a remarkable amount of folks who pay their taxes around here. It's 97, 98, sometimes 99% in a single year. But the average, as she said, is somewhere around 97, 98. And that's remarkable because a lot of the districts that I'm familiar with don't collect near that much. So that's a remarkable collection rate.
Any other questions?
Other questions for Ms. Rowlett? Ms. Rowlett, I was listening to the stock market game. Do you happen to know if it would be an audit finding if we used the legal fund balance to buy?
To do what?
Do you know if it would be an audit finding if we used the legal fund balance to
can't
buy Bitcoin with leverage?
That's right, that's public money, no, sir, we cannot.
We cannot buy Bitcoin with leverage with the legal
No,
fund
no.
balance?
You can buy into nuclear reactors to
No,
help.
I wouldn't even buy that with my
Okay,
own money.
all right.
There's got to be a waiver available for
No,
Let's look into the waiver on
I
that.
tell you what,
We
no,
need
no,
to get
no,
those kids back to ask for a waiver.
no. We're gonna buy
Grass
some,
is here,
take
that
some
was a
real money
joke.
and buy some Bitcoins, I would, no, okay. Any other questions?
Yes, I can see the management letter already being pre-written.
Okay.
Okay.
Not under my watch.
Okay, all right, thank you, Ms. Rowlett. Let me get Mr. Johnson, and then I'll come to you, back to you, Mr. Mr. Johnson, construction updates.
Board, good evening. Dr. Guest, good evening. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge our team for a second. Over the last 2 days, the weather's kind of been tricky for us. And so the maintenance crew and the transportation folks have been really working hard, trying to get us clear to be able to deliver our kids to and fro, and to make sure that our campuses are safe from snow and ice. And they've worked some really long hours and really, really hard, put in a great effort to try to get us ready for school today. So I'd at least like to acknowledge those folks today if I can. Number two, before we get started, I do have Bob and Michelle here just in case there was any questions in regards to the third point that I'll make tonight. And also WER, which is the architect firm that's taking care of Robinson High School expansion pieces. So I wanted to make sure they were here present tonight for part of my report. All right. So starting off, Mills High School. We're on target with the classroom addition. They're closing the building up now. They're installing the glass windows. We're trying to get the heat turned up so the guys that are working won't freeze. And we can also start on the finishes as far as that building go. They're on track to make sure that we're squared away for 31st of July date to turn that building over, that part of the building over to us for classroom space. The arena is currently still having masonry work and steel erection, which is still in process. The electricians, plumbers, and HVAC teams are continuing to do the rough end services, and we're moving forward. So everything's on track, and everybody's doing great. Completion date for the arena is the 31st of August, 2025. Softball field. We're pushing. February 1st should be our date that the girls softball field is turned over to us. We're doing the last pieces of work, light poles, electrical connections, doing up the fine tuning, so that we can get that portion of the project completed by the 1st of February. So those pieces, as far as the Mills platform, are moving along fine. Item number 2, College Station. The architects have completed their design work, and it's been turned over to the construction firm for bidding. We're simply waiting on that process. I think there were a few submittals that were left that had to be discussed before the bid could take place. But once that bid process, hard bid, is done, then that bid information is provided to the insurance company, which will either approve to say we'll have to rebuild this building, or they'll pay us out in order to use those funds for whatever choice for College Station as the board sees fit. So we're real close on that, and I appreciate the hard work that everyone's involved getting that done. So that brings me to Robinson. Prior to, Sandra, prior to Christmas break, there was a meeting with Dr. McNulty and a couple of folks in regards to Robinson High School. And the question was asked, what would that cost be if we finished out the second and third floor of the expansion process beyond the 19.5 for the building expansion and the $500,000 for the restrooms for the baseball and softball fields. So what you guys are receiving now is, based on the design, this is not a final pricing. This is a projected price based on the designs, the DD package that was presented to us of what that cost would look like for right now. It does give you some options as far as one alternative there, as far as the canopy piece. That was a courtyard item that could be removed for approximately $290,000. But everything else lays out the price of what was asked to be delivered as far as that pricing goes. Total out of pocket, if we did all the way through the second and third floor, would be approximately $24,834,637 is an approximate cost if we were to complete it out, not to start and just do the first phase of what we thought we could do, but if we could complete it out, that's what the price would be. So that is my report for this evening. You guys have questions for me at this time frame that I can answer for you.
I'm just going to verbalize what we have on the report, just
Yes,
for
sir.
people watching at home. So the 21, so that first set of tables ends up at 21,010,614. Okay.
That's correct.
And if you stop there, that gets you the band building and the classroom building without the second and third floors finished, right?
That's correct.
But it also includes some kind of estimates for the architects as well. So the architect fees are included in that, right?
That's correct.
So because sometimes you can see a number and it's just the construction budget, and then you have to add your architect fees on there. But it does not include F, and E, right?
That is correct.
So that 21 million would be missing the FF and E piece.
That's correct.
Which, I've got lots of percentages floating around. What in your opinion is a good percentage of the construction budget to use for FF and E?
About another $1 million.
Okay, so another million on top of that. Absolute numbers, another $1 million. So realistically, if we wanted to do the band room, which is also the tornado shelter, and build a 3-story facility, but finish out the first floor and just stop there, that would be about $22 million as an estimate right now in the design process.
That's correct.
And then, if we wanted to add the second floor, which would then include the elevator, that's $2.1 million roughly, almost $2.2 million just to do the second floor, right?
That's correct.
And then If you wanted to finish the third floor, that's about 1.9, almost $2 million to finish the third floor.
And just so that you understand the difference between the second and third floor, that elevator would cost approximately $100,000 to install.
Yeah. So the original 21 would not include the elevator. We talked about that before.
That's correct.
But once you start adding floors that can be used into play, you got to have your elevator.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so if anybody's watching at home, that's what we have in front of us here in terms of those numbers.
This is in addition to what's already been approved for Robinson, correct?
This is what was approved for Robinson. This would be in addition to that.
Yeah.
So above the 21,000, the 20 million.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the second and third floors?
Second and third floor.
Yeah, because when we had a vote to proceed.
Yes, sir.
It was to build the third floor building, or three-story building and the band room, but with the understanding that the top two floors would be unfinished.
That's correct. With the construction cost being 19 and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then once you add the architects and the FF&E, that gets you to around, at this point, estimated about $22 million.
That's correct.
And then the additional floors come in on top of that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The band building, which is also gonna be a storm shelter,
Yes, ma'am.
is required by the state, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And in this projection, that size of that storm shelter is based on 1,000 students. If we took it to 1,200 students, that will increase that cost by $1 million.
Okay, so if you go to 1,200 students, you need an additional $1 million. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is it better to overshoot that in the beginning?
With the growth, I would say yes, providing we can afford it.
Yeah,
I'd rather overshoot it if we were gonna build it anyway.
yeah. Well, we've got a money problem, so.
Well, we do, but I got some folks behind me, it's like, yeah, add on the money, add on the money.
Yeah, right, because, that's been a theme of all of our construction issues that we've been looking through is it sure would be better if we could do a little bit more. And you can certainly do that so much and then
Or you're in trouble.
you're just in trouble, you know.
Well, the one thing here by the presentation of this document is that there was a question asked about completing out those 2 additional floors and what that would look like.
Okay.
And I was trying to satisfy that requirement.
And again, this is an estimate prior to going out to bid.
That's correct.
So those numbers could change.
Yes,
It's not
yes, sir.
anything
And the
final.
numbers have been favorable based on what construction companies are talking about as far as bid processes go right now.
And didn't we have a storm shelter in the Innovation Center that houses 300? So we were saying we really had enough room for 1,200 anyway, or 1,300.
We do have space, but that space was, early on, if I'm not mistaken, and Russ, you can help me with this if you need to. Come up for a second.
Come on up, Russ.
Yeah, yeah.
He ain't going down alone.
Oh, no. But the storm shelter is correct, Dr. Tate, that the existing, gymnasium area has a storm shelter attached. But since Russ designed it, I'm gonna let him talk for us.
Sure, what was the question?
Well, I think when we talked previously, you said that the storm shelter that is allocated here was for 1,000 students, and then we had 300 that could be put in the Innovation Center, right?
I don't believe we spoke about storm shelter in the Innovation Center. The existing middle school has 1,000 student storm shelter as well.
Okay.
And I believe we talked about the students that are above the practice field,
In the driven program.
the driven program.
And the champion center.
Yeah, those students have access to the middle school
middle
storm
school,
shelter if
okay.
needed.
So we in essence have 2,000,
Yes.
yeah. And the middle school generally has fewer students, right, than the.
Correct.
And I think the population of our middle school is 700. At the present moment, 750. Dr. Whitfield is not here, but I would say 700 to 750.
Yeah, it's not 1,000, so
No, sir.
there's some capacity there, but then operationally, you would have to know who to send up from the high school, right?
That's correct.
So you'd have to have your plan in place.
605 currently at the middle school.
Okay.
So what was the student capacity with just completing the first floor?
Doesn't exactly change your capacity. It gives you, the extra core classrooms that we can fit on there. The current first floor has 4 core and then the 2 special education rooms that have the special restrooms and kitchen. The other 2 floors that are shelled out now each hold 10 classrooms, so an additional 20 classrooms then, which is about the number of classrooms you have in the existing school now.
So to help answer that question, if you look at the 4 core classrooms at 25 students per classroom, and you look at the sped classrooms at 17 as a maximum number for a sped classroom, you look at an additional capacity of 134 students, ma'am.
What's the student count now versus what the current capacity is?
Student count, I think at the high school is about 980.
That's with driven?
938.
Is that with driven or without driven? That's with driven.
That is times both.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the current capacity of?
If you went by the current standards by the state, the existing school should hold about 650 students.
So what are we currently doing with the extra students?
Well, we're sticking them places wherever we can find space to keep them warm, safe, and dry.
Which
That's
means,
the mandate, right?
Warm, safe, and dry, that's right.
which means the old middle school is a big place, right? Because,
The old middle, the ninth grade building is taking, the ninth grade students and housing them there. And that gives us, I wanna say that was approximately 19 classrooms. And so we're using all of that space, to train our kids and teach our kids. And so, in the old gym, we took the space that was upstairs, converted it to 3 offices and 2 classrooms that was in the upstairs loft there. Throughout the middle school and the high school, we've just taken space wherever we can find it to adapt it to classroom environments to make teachable space for kids. It's tight on that campus right now.
So what we've approved currently, is it gonna handle the total student count that we have right now?
No, that's why we need at least the second floor.
That's why we're heading into adding more.
so help me with the math. So you add classrooms on the first floor, but it doesn't net out to much of a difference because you've got specialty purpose classrooms in there, like sped, and, but there were a few normal
Yes,
normal
there were
classrooms.
4 additional new classrooms.
But we're basically saying it's gonna be negligible essentially, right? That-
Yeah, Mr. Delaney, if you say we're at 650 as far as the general population for this campus, we're at 980, if you will, we're running over. So you're gonna, the 137, if you pick up, you're still gonna be short on that campus,
Yeah.
on the first floor.
So it might add a little bit of capacity, but it's not fair to say zero, but.
Correct.
But it's, you gotta ramp up the second and third floor to really see those numbers move, right?
Correct.
Okay. But again, money is an issue, and there are multiple, claimants for that money that have commitments, so it's,
Well, and there again, this is a projection.
yeah, right, and it's a projection.
So before we just lock in, I just wanna
Yeah.
make sure it's a projection.
Okay.
Until we bid it, we won't.
If all other costs remain the same, which probably isn't gonna happen, but if all costs of materials and labor and everything remain the same, if we were to complete the first floor now and then come back in, say, a year and go build out the second and third floor, is there a higher cost to do it after the fact?
There is, because the contractor, they could probably speak to it better, but they're on site already, so, mobilizing again and coming back would definitely be an increase.
Do you have an estimate
Price.
of what that could be?
I'll let the contractor answer that one.
As we've learned.
Let's see the contractor. We haven't seen Baldwin and Shell here in this room for a
Well, come on
while.
up, Patrick, you've been itching and dying to get up.
Come get in the non-existent box.
So let me introduce you, Baldwin and Shell Construction Company. You have Michael Hansberry, a PCSSD graduate. He is the vice president for Central Arkansas. Patrick Schroeder is the president for Central Arkansas. And if I mess up the title, please correct me. But have been 2 great partners for the district over the years, and so I'll yield to Patrick.
Thank you all for the dinner.
Very well. Thank you.
Yeah, it was
Very
good.
well. Thank you all for what you do every day.
Good evening. So to answer your question, yes, and as we outlined with Mr. Johnson, to do the second and third floor simultaneously is a lot less expensive because just your resources that are there for your fencing, your labor, your superintendents, all your insurance coverage, all those things, we can do it simultaneously as opposed to doing it at a later date. To answer your question, we really haven't broken down a schedule for the second and third floor as to what it would take if we walked away. We just really included it to within our current schedule. So, you know, we could go back and take a look at that and give you a little bit more accurate estimate as to exactly what that, but it definitely would be an upcharge, just for the reasons of not having that staff and those construction materials that we need at that time to construct it.
When we talked about, there was an area that you were gonna investigate, correct me if I'm wrong, about extra parking.
Yes, we're gonna try to, parking is tight there now, and it's gonna be even more tight after this addition goes in. So we're looking at areas to add parking around the existing, basketball, building out there by the street, some areas on the west. So we're looking to fit in parking everywhere we can.
Dr. Tate, I would say one thing that's probably not going to be popular by way of parking. We may need to look at some restrictions as far as grade levels, who can drive during this time frame. When we start doing excavation work and that kind of thing, it will be chaotic on that campus, as you can see here when you guys travel up. That may make a very tight, congested area a little bit tricky for our students and for the safety of folks. So we may have to make a really grown person's decision by way of saying who can, who cannot park. It's just something we may have to do.
Park at Walmart, right? We'll bus you over.
Yeah, I won't touch that, Dr. Tate. I will not touch that.
Trolley run over there?
Game of Frogger getting across the
You haven't always been vice president of the area since you've been coming up here, have you?
No, sir.
Congratulations on the promotion. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Truth being told, Mr. Keller, Patrick was promoted, Michael was promoted, and Stephen has been promoted in the 7 years that I've been here. So they've done great work to a point where they were recognized. Even the new CEO for the company, Bobby Gosser, who was Patrick's boss at one point in time, he's now the CEO, so everybody got pulled up at the same time.
Very nice.
So you're taking credit?
No.
No.
None of that.
Well, congratulations to everybody.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
They're so good, they're gonna find a way to build this whole building from that.
Well, I will say this. Oftentimes, we fight like cats and dogs behind the scenes for the betterment of the district. But at the same token, to make sure that everyone walks away from the process in good shape. The projections that we have here today, I'm not holding them to it, but they kind of know I am holding them to it. So we're going to do great work to try to get to a number that we can afford and be responsible in our endeavor to get this done for kids. So they've committed to that. We're definitely committed to that. So we'll do the best we can.
And, you know, it's been a bit of a Robinson fiesta here, but we did back in November, you know, pass a resolution, and then in December sent out a second lien application that is, you know, that we thought was affordable, and we're working to see if that's still the case. No one said that it's not, but it was always going to be that we were going to look at the situation in August, and, you know, because that was the plan, and see what is affordable and try to get some more money to these projects. And so that's still the case. We reaffirmed that resolution at a previous meeting, in one of the special meetings in January. Even though we've had leadership changes, that was reaffirmed. But hopefully, we're gonna study it, and just like we always were, and that is out there for those other schools too, because Robinson's not the only school that we have commitments to. And if anyone's watching this, that's not forgotten. Okay.
Any questions for the team that we can answer at this point?
Okay.
No, I just wanted to second your acknowledgement of how hard your team worked this past weekend, and the fact that people don't realize those supervisors weren't just, you know, making decisions. They were out scouting the areas and driving some of those poor conditions and putting themselves at risk to do so. And so even though a lot of parents might not have appreciated the fact that we weren't in some of those days, you know, the fact that y'all went to the efforts that you did and always erring on the side of safety is commendable. So thank you and your team.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Do we have any,
Maumelle Middle and Maumelle High looks great today.
do we have any pipes burst or anything that,
We got a week of cold weather coming, be
Can
quiet.
we get through the season
Okay.
first?
Throw salt
My
over.
goodness.
okay, all right, sorry, I just
No,
wanted to know.
but to answer
You,
your question, no, sir.
well, that's what,
No, sir.
that's what was so remarkable, because I remember the last time we had such a cold weather snap, Little Rock seemed to blow up. I don't know if Mr. Poor was there at the time or not, but all their pipes seemed to blow up, but,
Well, I can't take any credit for that. It's one particular person sitting in this room that can take credit. Because
Okay.
he has to be up all night along with me, Jeff Lynch. Jeff monitors all of our engine. And he calls and sends out red flags and flares and everything else when he sees temperatures dropping and water cooled, chill loops throughout HVAC systems and that kind of, we get woke up in the middle of the night. Somebody's got to go and take a look, so Jeff's that guy.
okay, all right.
So,
Thank you.
thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't worry, Ms. Duff, sometimes I go right by, but not this time. School Board Appreciation Month with Ms. Duff.
You don't want to push off your own recognition, do you?
Yes, actually.
Yes, I know you do. Well, thank you, Board, and Dr. Guest, and those who are sticking around still this evening. January is School Board Appreciation Month, and as you may have seen already on our social media, we've been recognizing individual board members. Our theme this month has to do with the superpowers that you all possess and what you do for our school district. So we've had a lot of fun with those. Ms. Ward's post was today. We've had Ms. Maynard, and I think Ms. Smith is scheduled for this week. Dr. Tate, yours has gone up. Wendy and Mr. Keller, yours your next week. Mr. Delaney, that leaves you.
Oh.
My superpower is invisibility.
Okay, I can work with that. So those are on our social media throughout the month. So if you haven't seen them yet, feel free to check those out. And continuing with the tradition that I started when I came here in 2018, we've added your 2024-25 school year plaque to our main plaque that sits in the lobby. So just want to thank you all for everything that you do as a board and continue to do for our students and the impact that you have on both students and staff here in the district. So thank you very much. And if you will grant me a photo at the end of the meeting holding the plaque, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, that gets us through all our reports and everything. That brings us down to new business. We did have at one time potential old business, which were the Robinson contracts, but those are still undergoing legal review, but it is not, it's normal school district legal review with construction contracts, not any kind of special legal review that might deal with desegregation or anything like that. So if anyone was thinking there might be something more special to it, it's the normal stuff that Mr. Beckett does with contracts, regardless of the district and regardless of the project. So that brings us down to new business. Our first item on the agenda is the unfreezing of the chief financial officer position. I'll start with just a little bit of context on this. So this proposal came to me through the agenda setting process last month, and I asked that it be held over because I wanted to go research the circumstances of its freezing and also where it was on the salary schedule at that time. And so, and that was done under Dr. McNulty, but he intended to recommend that we unfreeze it in December. Dr. Guess is here now. So Dr. Guess and I spoke about this, and he's looked into it as well. And he can speak for himself, but my understanding is that recommendation still holds. It's on the agenda here, but I do want to point out that when it was frozen at range 21, okay, on the classified salary schedule. You may see some documents that show that it would come back at range 25. I do not believe we have the authority to put it back at range 25 without going through the classified salary process of sending it to classified. So I am saying that we can unfreeze this position if we want on the recommendation of the superintendent, but it would come unfrozen at where it went frozen in, which is 21. Okay, it's not a freeze if you come back different than when you started. Now, the other thing is you've got a job duty sheet on your agenda. You are not approving the job duties or the qualifications or anything. That is purely to the discretion of the administration in how the qualifications and the job duties, if Dr. Guest wants to change that, if HR wants to change that, they can do that. You are not approving the position. That's there for your information. What we are being asked to do, if we want to, is unfreeze it, because through the allocations process, when you freeze a position, it locks it, so it cannot be filled. So only the board can unfreeze the position, and then at that point, it goes to the administration to determine if they want to fill it. If it's unfrozen, it doesn't force the administration to fill it, it allows them to. Dr. Guess.
Oh, I think you've summarized it very well, Mr. Delaney. It's my recommendation that you do unfreeze it and allow us to post it, and we've had quite a few conversations about the need for a single person in the business office making decisions and taking responsibility, and even the people within that office and I have discussed the situation, they agree with that. So that is the purpose, is to identify a single individual who's responsible for all of the financial management of the district.
Okay. Questions?
So the proposed thing that we are approving will not be salary range 25?
No,
It'll be 21?
no. If Dr. Guest wants that to be, or the administration wants that to be at 25, they will need to send it to PPC and follow that process to get it to 25. It comes alive at 21, and then they work through PPC, or the PPC classified, if they want to get it to a different place. So if we wanted to do this, the motion would be to unfreeze the CFO position at range 21.
Motion.
Okay, Dr. Tate has made a motion to unfreeze the CFO position at range 21. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Potter has seconded. Further discussion or questions?
So this would be an additional position in the business office. Finance.
It is the position of a CFO, and if it is filled, then that may affect the number of positions in the business office. But I'm looking at positions allocated across the district in all areas, and expect to come with recommendations regarding a more efficient, streamlined staff.
But the moment that the CFO is filled, like if you filled it next month or March, let's say March or April, it would add an FTE to the business office.
Wouldn't start till July 1.
Oh, okay, so there's the piece, okay, so this person, if that's filled, they wouldn't start till July 1st.
Correct.
Okay. And then there would be an allocations process and everything else.
Yes.
There would be subsequent recommendations,
Yes.
essentially, potentially. Okay. All right, so I do have a motion from Tate and a second from Potter to unfreeze at range 21. Any other questions or discussion?
So we feel comfortable with proposing a additional position when we have, staff that feels like they are not being paid properly.
Is that directed to me?
I mean, you can take it.
Well, I don't believe that this is necessarily an additional position. I don't believe that this is necessarily in addition. What Mr. Keller asked was, is that going to be another position? And when the allocation process is over, positions in the business office may be streamlined and reduced. So there will be other changes in the business office and perhaps other parts of the district, or at least those will be my recommendations to the board.
So we're looking at, people losing their job, possibly.
Well, I think there's gonna have to be some issue with the efficiency in the district. One of the things that I've been told by this board was to examine the fiscal integrity of the district and the fact that there have been declining balances and for what reason. So that's some of what I'm doing.
You've been told by the board or Delaney?
The board in a meeting you were not at.
Oh, well, thank you.
Okay, so, but this action in isolation does add an FTE, but subsequent decisions may be made that would, it would either net out at zero or be a savings depending on any, no promises, but.
No promises, but that would be my intention.
And the underlying basis, now, Dr. McNulty may have shared the same basis, I don't remember, and I'm not gonna represent what his basis was, but when you looked at this independently, because it was still frozen when you came here, your underlying basis for having the CFO is because you thought there needed to be a single responsible person for the entire business.
That's right,
With all-
a single individual responsible for the financial management of the district in total.
Okay. And so that's the intellectual architecture behind this. Okay. I will put the motion to a vote. The motion is to unfreeze the CFO position at range 21. All in favor of unfreezing the CFO position at range 21, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay. So I have the noes as Mr. Keller and Ms. Ward, and then everyone else is yes. Does that sound right? Okay, so 5-2. All right. Next one is a short resolution that I wrote. Put it up here. It is what I would call the review and technical assistance resolution. Dr. Guess already has this authority to review anything he wants to review related to how the administration operates. He also has the authority up to a certain amount to bring in technical assistance, purchase services, essentially, as long as it doesn't exceed a certain amount in policy. But I felt it would be helpful for the board to be explicit that, if it wants to, that it is asking him to do these reviews and seek this help if he wants it. So that he knows that what the board would like to see from him as part of his 6 months of coverage here at the district while we're selecting a superintendent, permanent superintendent. So essentially, he has all this authority now. The innovation here is that if it passes, it would give him the certainty that the board does want him to look at things. He can already do that, but that this is something that we want him to prioritize doing as part of being here for 6 months. It's vague, but I just want him to know that we want him to, if the board approves it, to look at these things and bring in help if he thinks that there needs to be help. So it's a very short resolution, but that is the intent of it. I think it's clear. If the board passed this resolution, it would give him that certainty that the board wants him to review those areas.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 4.
Okay. So so resolution 4, the technical review and technical assistance resolution, right? Okay, we've got the motion, but I'm not gonna speed through this. Questions?
Okay, I find it very odd that we have come to a conclusion to rehire a superintendent that was dismissed by the district. None of you all, because you wasn't there. But I find it very odd that with the mishandling that we found with Dr. Guest at the time, which he was in full charge of everything, that you all feel comfortable with handing him back the responsibilities of what got us in the position where we are with Mills and the case with Mills in court. So, I mean, you can take it for what it's worth, but I'm gonna always let my voice be heard because of the fact that I didn't get out there and walk and and solicit votes from the people that I represent and sit here and just be a nodding statue. I'm not going to do that. So you're going to hear from me. So I find it very odd that we're back, that we're going backwards. Because Dr. Guest had full range of making decisions at the time when there was not a board, and a lot of decisions were made with the people that were up under him. But this board here, y'all real comfortable with the fact that Dr. Guest is in charge again. I don't know what his reasoning was back then. I don't know if somebody owed him something that he had to make those decisions the way he did. But y'all can huff and puff and blow every house down. But I find it very odd. And I hope we don't end up back in court again.
Other questions or comments?
I second the resolution.
Okay. Maynard, and then second with Tate. Okay, I will put the resolution for the review and technical assistance resolution to a vote. All in favor of approving resolution 4, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, I have that 5-2 along the same lines as the last vote, with Keller and Ward no, and the others yes. And to be clear, so Dr. Guest has authority to bring in purchase service for, that is legal and ethical to do so. This authorization, Rita Guest has CFO experience and does consulting. He does not have authority for that. That is something I'm looking at, considering bringing back to the board. But at this time, I would want to be clear that that is not on the table. But if Dr. Guest determines that the business office needs that level of support, it would be separate from any resolution here, okay? Now, to the next item, search firms and next steps. I threw this on there because my intent when I brought the search firms was to just get the presentation and then leave and come back and make a decision at a special meeting later, because we're gonna need a special meeting for the Robinson contracts, because those need to be approved at some point. So we do have another special meeting that needs to be scheduled. However, I do want to give you the option to ventilate your thoughts on what you saw tonight, if you have any leanings, and how you would like to see going about coming to a decision on search firms. I see as your options, you could decide today, though that was not my intention, but it is the board's ability to decide today. You can decide at a special meeting in the next probably 10 days. We've got Martin Luther King Day coming up, so I don't know if Monday's an option, but we should probably make a decision pretty soon because you understood the timelines here. And the board does have the options to get more proposals from different firms. That is an option. I want to put that on the table as well. But when we went to search firms in 2018, we brought 2. And it was Ray and McPherson. So I got us 2. We can get more if you want, but I would like us to at least come up with a way that we want to make a decision on this. If it's not today, then at a special meeting, and then get it scheduled.
Is it an option to go into an executive session?
Not on search firms. You cannot discuss, you cannot discuss search firms in executive session. So this all has to be done publicly. So if you're evaluating them, they're here, but their feelings are not gonna be hurt. They're professionals, okay? And, they haven't gotten them all, okay? So it's okay to talk about them in public and evaluate them in public. They expect that. But no, we cannot do that in executive session.
I mean, personally, I'd just like to take a vote tonight or take a vote at our next meeting when we have the special meeting.
Others
should go with the Baldwin.
The Baldwin. Motion on the ball. Good.
Yeah, yes.
Coming from the Baldwin.
Other thoughts on how, do you want to take some time? Because you could take some time and then contact them if you had questions or whatever and ask them things individually. I can get you their contact information and give you a period of time to mull it over, and then do it at a special meeting. What do you think? Did you
I
see
think I'd
enough
rather
tonight to
vote.
make a decision?
I think I'd rather vote tonight so that the next special meeting we can start giving them criteria.
Okay.
I think the sooner, the better, that everybody make their decision and say their piece and their thoughts on who they would, out of these two, like to go with, and then let's get the search going so we can get the best candidate before they get taken.
Did you see enough tonight to feel comfortable that you have a good set of options to pick from? Do you want more? Because, you know, the integrity of the search process is important. I'm not implying that we didn't have that. I just want to make sure that you understand that even if we decide tonight, you don't have to decide tonight. But there are advantages to deciding tonight if you wanted to do that, as was mentioned. Mr. Keller, tonight? Done it good?
I'm fine with tonight.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Ward, are you fine with tonight?
I'll plead the fifth.
Okay. Ms. Potter?
I'm fine with tonight.
Okay. All right, well, let's get into the meat of this. I watched Fort Smith. How they did it is they went around and said how they felt about, they had 5, but they did RFQs where everybody sent in packets and the individual representatives were not there. And each person went around and said they liked this and that, but they leaned this way or they leaned that way or so on, okay? So do we want to try that? Is just go around the room and see where everybody, take the temperature of where everybody is on our 2 search firms? Okay. Ms. Maynard, would you start? Yeah.
I'm leaning towards Education Partners.
Okay. Ms. Smith?
I've spent 2 years with McPherson Jacobson, listening to at ASBA their classes since we weren't sure when McNulty was going to leave, and I have a lot of confidence in my connections to the people that Mr. Williams, Dr. Williams knows, and I would like to choose them.
Ms. Ward, do you want to make a statement on these right now? Can we pass?
I'll go with the Baldwin.
Okay, Baldwin. Dr. Tate?
I thought both gentlemen did a really good job of representing their companies, but I too felt like McPherson was a little more specific, itemized what they would do for how much and that sort of thing, so I'd probably go with McPherson.
Mr. Keller?
Not to be ambivalent, but I'm really on the fence with both of them because I like the experience and the breakdowns of Dr. Williams, and they're established, but you never discount the hungriness of a new firm that's trying to make a reputation for themselves as competent and trustworthy. So I don't feel like we can go wrong with either one, and I'm happy to go with the majority of the board.
Okay, well, we're at 2 for McPherson, 1 for Education Partners. Ms. Potter?
I thought both of them did a great job. I thought both of the presentations were really good. They looked good. Both people sounded really good. But I'm leaning towards McPherson, mostly because of all of the letters of recommendation and the way that the community input process would be handled.
I'll go, I didn't skip anyone, right, except Ms. Ward. You can go now if you want, Ms. Ward, or I'll go. I watched the search in 2018 from the audience. I was not on the board at the time. And they had McPherson and Ray to pick from. They presented on separate nights. And then I got to see the search through the lens after the fact because we ended up in litigation with the search. So everything about the search got splayed out, okay, into discovery and so on and so forth. And I liked that both, I think one of the things that I got into when I was asking Mr. Poor about was the rubric, is just because I felt like the way that the other firm did it was confusing, I guess. It was trying to get them to a conclusion, but I like the idea that both firms would be flexible with how the board was able to get to a set of finalists even, let alone because I thought there was a lot of uncertainty and confusion about how we even ended up with the 3 finalists that we did under the old system. And so I appreciated that we weren't going to be subjected to these type of problems. I appreciated Mr. Poor and his firm. I think it's going to do good business in Arkansas. I think that there is space for this type of search firm, and I would expect that as this gets out more and more, that Mr. Poor will have a good market for these services. I'm just a little more comfortable with McPherson in terms of the number of searches, and just this district has a lot of complexity to it, and Mr. Poor is familiar with the market, shall we say, being a superintendent here. But, you know, I watched that search the whole way through, and I have a leaning towards McPherson simply in 2018, from the search in 2018. I just have a leaning towards McPherson because of the fact that this district, you know, really, the last search was controversial, and I just feel like McPherson just signaled a little bit more safety to me, and so that's why I'm leaning more towards McPherson. So we have, on the liens, we have 4 McPherson, 1 education partner, an ambivalent, and a question mark. Do you want to weigh in, Ms. Ward?
I mean, I'll go with the 4.
Go with Poor? Okay. Education partners, Mr. Keller.
Education partners.
Okay, so we have on the liens 4 for McPherson, 3 for education partner. Do any McPhersons want to change their vote based on what they've heard?
Going once.
I mean, Mr. Keller saying that they were both equally good, I mean, I totally agree.
Yeah, this is kind of how Fort Smith ended up is that they liked a lot of what they saw, and they went with their gut and their impressions, and so it's not a real good definitive judgment against either firm. And that's the way that I've seen these go, and it seems like, you know, some of this is subjective, but I did like McPherson slightly more. So I guess then what we need to do is try to get a contract together with McPherson, because that would be the next step, right, is to make sure that we have an agreement in principle and in fact with McPherson, if that's what the direction we want to go.
I have a question. There were many things that education partners offered outside of superintendent searches. Is there a possibility that we might be able to take advantage of some of those down the road?
Well, so yes, and we could take action on that tonight, actually, to
Like our discussion about vision and the goals of the board and that type of stuff.
So we could do 2 votes. We could take action on the search with McPherson, and then essentially what you would be doing is you can do it any way you want, but I solicited them all, so and they indicated that they want to work with the board president, but you can do whatever you want. One option here would be to send me to negotiate a contract on the search with McPherson, and then send me to negotiate support services with Mike Poor.
I'm okay with that, and you bring them back to us.
and bring them back to you for approval. Not, I don't sign us up for anything. I get everything together and then come back and say, here's the search firm proposal with McPherson, and then here's a menu from Mr. Poor and Education Partners to do these things, and then we can pick off of that menu and move forward with Mr. Poor in whatever the board wants to do.
Yeah, noting that some of those things were also included with McPherson, so we don't want to double up.
Well, right, correct, but there are certain things that Mr. Poor showed us tonight that aren't part of a search, like doing, you could, but essentially have Mr. Poor supporting the board in terms of developing goals and a long-term strategic plan and things like that. So, Mr. Poor, could you come up for a second and just talk about that piece?
He's gonna do it for free?
No, that's, go
Where
ahead.
you getting all this money from?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No problem. I think that one of the things that you would, just being around this board now for 2 meetings, virtually and now in person, that, there is such a bent on intentional reach out to community. And so when we do strategic planning, we use a process where we are really trying to make sure that we understand what people value about this school district. And we also want to look at what people aspire to. And so as we go through a process, not only with board members individually and collectively, but then we reach out to everything that you'd kind of expect that you've heard on these superintendent searches. We're doing that, but we're doing it even more depth. So that means that we are talking to teachers, we're talking to classified employees, we are talking to your administrators, we are talking to the community members that you all as a board member say, these are folks we want you to reach out to. Then we also talk to kids. And we really have found great value in listening to the kid voice. We do that all the way down to the middle school level in terms of reaching out to those groups of kids to interact with them. What we end up coming back then, because this is your process when you think about a strategic plan, as a board, you have to approve the priorities. You're going to also approve the strategic goals. Then we work with the administration to develop the key performance indicators. Those are the key performance indicators are critical because those are the tools that you can use as a board to not only celebrate everything that's being accomplished, but also to evaluate your superintendent. That's in a really tight nutshell. I could expand or address other questions, but hopefully that gets the conversation started.
In your opinion, the board has made, we haven't voted on it, ratified it, but going with McPherson for the search, and is there any problem with then working with you on certain things that don't overlap with the search? For example, would you prefer to wait until we do the superintendent search before really engaging with us? Or do you see that we can kind of work off of multiple tracks if we have, what do you think?
I think that you probably want to have a little bit of a separation, and I would think that Dr. Williams would say the same thing to you, that you want to have that focus right now on everything about the superintendent. But I also think there's a timing in place of hiring the superintendent and then also having that strategic process already in movement. So, it would be like, get started with search and then come back in with the strategic plan, maybe just like a month or 6 weeks after you've really started the process for this. Because then you want all those things to hit the ground running.
But it was, if the board votes to send me to work with you to bring a proposal to the board, that would be well received on your part, right? You would.
Absolutely.
And then we can work around, because right now, the board's highest priority has to be getting a new permanent superintendent by the 7/1. But we have, in my opinion, we have some gaps here in this district in terms of no strategic plan, no goals. Our superintendent evaluation, I don't know if you watched that piece of the meeting, but our superintendent evaluation hasn't been touched since 2018. There's a lot of, questions about the guardrails that we have in place, even down to policy and things like that. Is that stuff that you could help us with if the board wanted that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we can create a package. And Ms. Tate, I know what I picked up from you is you love the detail of, an actual dollar amount. And so when we come back after work with Mr. Delaney to define this a little bit more, we can come back with a very specific total for that.
And this is what you're doing now in Jonesboro, right? Something similar to this?
We did that in Jonesboro, and we also did it in Russellville, are the two main districts here in Arkansas, and then we've had a variety of districts all over the country that we've done it in.
Okay.
I'd like you to expand or look at the program evaluation,
Program evaluation for,
that he can do program evaluations.
of programs we're doing in the district. Okay, yeah.
The one that we end up receiving the most, we've done the most work on is with SPED. We've done that in Kansas City and Seattle. We've done transportation study in Douglas County, which is a district of about 70,000. And then we just got hired by the Aurora schools in Colorado, which is about a 60,000 district, to do an HR thing where it looks like everything is out of whack in terms of their salary schedules and needing to come up with a better way to create a salary schedule that's equitable for all.
Okay.
Just to give a
I think Ms. Maynard means avid.
Probably.
She might, but
I've
we'll
made
see,
my,
we'll see how
my
this goes,
opposition
okay?
known.
She identified a thing, and you identified a thing off of her identification. So, we'll see. There's many.
I mean, if asked, I would have told, so.
When I talked to you on the phone, I think I told you this is an exotic district, okay? There's a lot
that
of
the word you
differences.
would've used,
That's the word I
exotic?
used, exotic. It is an exotic district, okay? And so, I think there's some space here to get some help, being a little more normal when we can. So let me get a vote to engage with McPherson on the search and bring back a contract to the board. So I move that we engage with McPherson on a search and bring a contract back to the board for approval. I made the motion to engage with McPherson and bring back a contract for approval. Dr. Tate has seconded. Final discussion? Okay, put it to a vote. All in favor of approving the McPherson engagement on the search, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, I have that 7-0. Now, I'll make a motion to engage with Mr. Poor, that I will engage with Mr. Poor on these technical support. How would you call this technical support? What's a concise way that I could make a motion, and Cynthia Howe could report on it?
I would say to give consideration to a strategic plan and potential review and support on district programming.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to engage with Mr. Poor on a strategic plan and review and support of district programming.
Second.
Okay, I made the motion, Ms. Potter has seconded. To be clear, everything has to come back before the board before anything is completely done. I'm just getting tasks to do, to bring back to you, to have documents to approve or not approve. All in favor of engaging with education partners on a strategic plan and review and support, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. I don't know if it's half a loaf for each of you, but we did two things tonight, and I appreciate you both for coming. I'll be getting with both of you to move forward on these decisions that the board made, and we'll try to get this search going as soon as possible and get this strategic support going as when it makes sense, and dovetail it with our superintendent search. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That brings us through all of our new business and down to comments from the board.
Sure, I'll start. Just again to reiterate the gratitude to all the people that worked over the inclement weather, but not just that, all the people that came to work when they were on vacation over the break to accommodate the special board meetings. Those couldn't have been done without y'all, so thank you for those of you that sacrificed. And congratulate Tina Ward officially now that she has been sworn in as District 9 Justice of the Peace on the Quorum Court. I showed up at her investiture at the Clinton Library, and it was I've always had a lot of love and respect for Tina because she is always going to be her, that she's not going to change for anybody, and she has strong convictions, and they're all rooted in the love of her community and her drive to do what's best for everybody. And that was definitely solidified by all of the very respectable community members from around this area that came out and spoke on your behalf. And I really was going to stand up and try to be funny for a minute and speak because it was an open podium, but it was just the amount of impressive people that got up and complimented you and spoke very highly of you and professionally is a testament to the things that you're trying to do for the people in your community. So congratulations on everything.
Thank you, Eli.
I had a great visit today with Mr. Allen and Kristen Ehring and Dr. Guest going over the academies at Sylvan Hills. I think it's a very promising program, and I think we talked a little bit about the fact that all of us should be using that to help us draw kids into the district. Like, it is something that makes us different, especially from the charter schools and the private schools. They don't have the pathways that we have available for our kids. And it really needs to be something that we put out there to start bringing people back into the district.
I know it's,
Go ahead.
am I talking? I know it's school, board comments, but I would like to yield to our great student here to hear anything that he has to say.
What is your pathway?
I am in the biomedical pathway. I'm in the sports medicine pathway, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, speak into the mic. So,
I am in the sports medicine pathway under the medical sciences with the academy.
Yeah. What's your plans?
So actually I had a change of plans. So originally when I chose my pathway, my goal was to go to college and major in sports medicine and be an athletic trainer. So actually at Sylvan Hills we have a sports medicine program where we get to participate in on-the-job training. So for the past 3 years I've had the opportunity to be at on the sidelines of all the football games, all the basketball games, volleyball games, baseball, softball, and some of the soccer games. And it's honestly been a great experience. I had some scares. It's definitely I felt there was a great opportunity to show on-the-job training to show what you actually, because some things that I've seen I never thought that I would see. Never want to see again. But overall, I've had the program is amazing with our sports medicine teacher, our athletic trainer, Miss Shadavia McPherson. And it's just overall a great opportunity. So I've actually kind of changed my plans a little bit. So now, like you heard earlier, I plan on going to college to major in political science.
Awesome.
I saw that coming.
You did.
I told you he's everywhere.
okay, I yield at this time because I want to hear from you. Just tell us what's your overall, what do you feel like this, I just want to hear from you.
My overall on what?
Just this district.
And like, is there anything specifically?
Don't even cut it. Just tell us.
My overall, I love PCSSD. PCSSD. Since I've been in PCSSD, it's been a great district. I haven't had a problem out of PCSSD. I've had great principals, especially the ball guy. I've had great APs. I've met great people all throughout the district, board members, superintendents, assistant superintendents, communications directors, everybody just throughout the district. I just have, y'all are just amazing. All of you all, I have no complaints. Sylvan Hills, of course, I'm a bear. Once a bear, always a bear since I've been going to UCA. But it's just overall a great community, and I love it here.
Oh, wait, so you're going to UCA?
I am.
I don't remember seeing that to read. So, was it?
It was highlighted.
It was in the other section.
You didn't have your glasses on.
So, at UCA, how many hours were you going to school with?
So, I'm trying to figure that out right now because I was talking to someone earlier and they wanted me to do a double major which originally was an option, but I've kind of been talking with some people that are in the career. So overall, I want to go to the FBI. So in that, I would go get my bachelor's in political science. Then I would find a law enforcement agency that I would fit in and that would properly suit me for my future career. And I'd spend anywhere from 3 to 5 years getting my basic law enforcement training. And then that's when I would hopefully start the 1 to 1.5 year background check of hopefully getting into the FBI Academy. And then I plan on sticking that out for at least 10 years. I don't want to go to burnout. I don't want to go to retirement because I just want to do that. That's something I've always wanted to do. So I want to do that and then eventually leave that and then go back to my community and hopefully become an elected official in some capacity to give back to my community.
If you're around, I'll vote for you if you're in my area. You can be a school board member too.
So yeah, those are my plans.
You don't want to take Mr. Allen's job one day and be an educator?
No, I think he's got it. I think he's got it.
All right.
He does a phenomenal job. So
Well, we're super proud of you.
Yeah.
thank you.
I told him earlier, I thought, when I was sitting in the audience, I thought he was a teacher all these times that I've seen him at the board meetings because he's so composed and so well-dressed and just, I didn't even realize he was a student.
I don't think I've ever seen him dress in anything but suits and dress slacks. I
Very
haven't seen him
impressive.
casual ever. Not even your
Praise
jeans.
the Lord. I'm glad you represent well.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Tate?
Thank you. I'm sure you're gonna accomplish whatever you set out to do, because you are an amazing young man. But, as someone who shoveled snow for 3 hours to get the driveway cleared, I'd also like to thank all the people who got everything cleared up and took care of the pipes so they didn't break and that sort of thing. And, I'd also like to congratulate the students and the teachers and the principals and all the people that were involved in that great economics award that they got. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Delaney because he takes a lot of abuse up here. He spends more time and more hours worrying about all the teachers and all the students in this district than all of us put together. And I think he does a great job, and I think he should be lauded for that.
I laud you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Back in December when we were doing our announcements, or I was saying for the future that I was looking forward to cell phone free schools. And I was really super excited to see that Sarah Sanders actually commented at her meetings that she is going to work to get a program set up that is for all schools in Arkansas to be cell phone free. And that made my heart really happy after 3.5 years of saying I want no cell phones in schools.
Is this a touchdown celebration? What is this?
Just saying.
Okay, but the devil's in the details, so let's see.
Yeah, it's not done yet.
Let's see
But
what it looks like.
I put it out there in universe on my little board.
Okay.
Came back.
All right.
I'd like to point out to Mr. Allen that Eli and I are both wearing bear blue today.
I forgot about the blue in December.
I know.
That's because Sylvan Hills beat Dr. Farr.
I don't know, I mean, I think he likes the
Did Dr.
Bears.
Farr wear his mascot yet?
It's coming.
We get that video, right? Fantastic.
Okay, down to comments from the superintendent.
Oh, yeah, quick reminder, next month is Black History Month.
Wait, Dr. Guess, I have something else. Financial forms for board members, the statement of financial interest for board members and superintendents are due by January 31st. I didn't bring any, but
Those things just
I will email those forms to the board, but they're due to the county clerk's office by January 31st. But when you hold 2 offices, good news, you can just check 2 boxes and get it done. So With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Guest for his comments.
You all have already mentioned that Monday is a holiday. I was going to remind you of that. All the schools and offices will be closed. I want to echo, and I know it sounds like we just keep saying the same thing, but there are an awful lot of people here who work really hard. Ms. Smith asked me when we were talking about me doing this job, why I wanted to come do this job. There are a lot of good people that work here. There really are. I don't think that should have been a secret, but sometimes people forget the quality and the sheer number of hard-working people here that are helping. They're here to help kids, and that includes clearing the parking lot. That also includes that talk today about business academies, and it's such a wide range and so many good people. They worked, I can't tell you, I had phone calls all sorts of the hours at night telling me what things were like and what they thought. And we made the decisions about school together. It was good that we could coordinate with the other districts in the county. But it is just heartwarming to know how many good people are here working so hard. We missed 3 days, as you know. There's a question about how to make those days up. We understand, we believe that we have filed the proper paperwork with the state to be considered an alternative calendar school. That means that we can accumulate minutes in excess of the minimum per day and use those minutes in various ways. And one of the ways you can use those minutes, which equate to hours and days, is to have times such as this that we are not required to come back to school or to make those days up. You saw that last year, I believe, when you had such a bad event here. Well, we think the same circumstances exist this year. We think we have quite a few days banked, and there should not be a problem with us using the bank time to not make these 3 days up. So that is what one thing that we've been working on is to clarify that for this year. I spent some of that time at home looking through a lot of the stuff going on in the district, and one of the things I looked at was the district website and the calendar, and it dawned on me that calendar, instead of having 178 days of student contact, had 173. Now, you could use those banked minutes to reduce the number of days that you bring kids to school, reduce the number of days that teachers are teaching classes. And in this case, that calendar proposed to reduce the number of student contact days from 178 to 173. But I think we may need to look at that calendar again. So what I'm telling you is I would like to look at that calendar again and bring a recommendation to you in February. And my rationale is there are a lot of groups affected by that decision. If you go to school 173 days a year, we've got bus drivers on 178-day contracts. They drive buses 178 days. We've got custodians and secretaries and all sorts of people that have contracts based on students attending school 178 days. And when you reduce that number to 173, you've got to decide how you're going to handle all those things. Now, the districts that are doing something such as this simply say, well, we'll pay them the full amount. You can do that. And I would say that is what you must do if you reduce the contract, because I think those people are counting on a full contract. But those are questions that are unanswered, and there are a lot of those questions floating around out there. In addition to that, I think you've reduced the number of student contact days by 5. That means there are 5 fewer days of instruction. And even if you had the number of minutes banked to do that reduction with, you are still reducing the number of contact days by 5. And this district has 26 campuses, and a third of those campuses are in what I would say are an academic distressed posture. So when you reduce the calendar by 5 days, not only do you reduce the calendar for the days for the kids that have got an A in their school, but you also reduce the calendar for those kids who are struggling in their schools. So I think we have to look again at that calendar, and my feeling right now is return to 178 days of student contact. And if this wants to be the plan in the future, then I think in the future start start making plans on how you're gonna use those days, what you're gonna do with them. So I think we have to look at that calendar again. Do you have any questions?
My understanding was we went down to 173 because we had a longer day, I guess, than we needed when we were basing it on minutes. Is that?
You could base it on minutes and reduce the number of days.
Okay.
Yeah, but you still reduce the number of days. If you still got those same minutes in that calendar that we had this year, that wouldn't change. We'd have the same amount of minutes in that day that we had this year, but those excess minutes would give you the choice of reducing your number of days of contact. So you're really still reducing. You're actually reducing student instruction by 5 days.
How many days would that give us built in for snow days or whatever else, flood days?
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
we've had all kinds of stuff.
there's a little bit of a difference of opinion about that in terms of the total number of days and what that number is, but it's at least 8 or 10.
Okay.
We could have 8 or 10 days that are built in, such as this, when you wouldn't have to make these days up for snow.
Okay.
Does this all make sense to you? I'm just not comfortable with cutting it back, given the posture of some of the districts. Well, we will come back to you in February with another calendar, or I will have had a mea culpa and decided I was wrong, but we'll see, okay? One of the things that Governor Sanders is doing is doing away with, trying to do something to control cell phones. And one of the things that she's doing is making available cell phone pouches to districts.
Yep.
And Ms. Duff mentioned that, we talked about this in Cabinet, and Ms. Duff mentioned that she knew that there was a program going on where the pouches were being made available to select districts. Now, she has explored the situation, and we believe that if we get our name in the hat right now, we might be able to qualify for some of that money and get some of those pouches. She's found out that if we wait until 25, 26 to put our name in the hat, it's probably can't get our name in the hat then.
No.
We can
Can't
get
wait.
it in there now, we can maybe get some now, we might even get some of the money available next year, but no new schools added next year. So what we want to do is throw our name in the hat to get those cell phone pouches.
Yes, sir.
And if you're familiar with them, they essentially stop the phone from being communicate. It will not communicate if it's in that pouch. And she has pictures of them, but it's a pouch that you can wear around your neck or whatever the principals decide to do. We had 2 choices. One would have been the pouch and one would have been an actual locker. But we thought the locker would be far too cumbersome. There would be all sorts of difficulty about where you put it, who controls it, how do you get the phones back, all that stuff. Bottom line is, I agree cell phones are horrible. If this will help, we ought to try to do it.
So at my daughter's school, their homeroom teacher collects their phones. And then at the end of the day, they go back to their homeroom for the last 5-7 minutes and then receive their stuff back. So there's no availability during the day.
Yeah.
And the phones are locked down throughout the day.
And there are a number of effective ways to reduce the access to the phone. I agree. This just seems to be something that the governor supports and something that we could participate in. But I also agree with you that principals and teachers that explore other ways, find other ways to make it work. It's
just gotta work.
It can happen. Yeah.
It's gonna
All
work.
right. Well, we're gonna pursue that if there are no problems with that.
So you think that's gonna be a law for Arkansas?
Well, I mean, there's.
Or is that just the governor's suggestion?
It's the governor's initiative right now. The governor, as has become recognized by a lot of state officials, that cell phones are having a negative impact on students in school.
Huge.
And a lot of states are finding ways to restrict that. Governor Sanders is using this as an entry-level way to do that. She may do more. I don't know. She could actually ask the legislature to consider legislation to somehow control cell phones. I know there's some discussion about that among legislators. But this is what the governor's doing now, and I just think it's a way for us to try and participate in that and help kids learn better.
Less distraction in the classroom during learning.
Even if we got pouches, I mean, our existing discipline policies and cell phone practices are still in the handbook, right?
Yes, they are. That's
So
right.
what would you be thinking here, even if the pouches showed up tomorrow, would it just be to the principal's discretion about how it was work, or would it, how they would integrate in, or would it be a district-wide,
We don't,
initiative?
Ms. Duff, now you chime in if I say the wrong thing, but we don't think there will be, we don't think that we'll qualify for enough pouches for the whole district. We will. We will. Also, you think we might? Say that again.
The grant will be written that way.
Okay, then we may qualify for enough pouches for the whole district. And if we,
Sorry, 6 through 12th grade.
Six through 12.
6 through 12, okay, all right, not the whole district. So enough for 6 through 12, and then we'll have to come back and discuss a protocol about how we will distribute them and what we expect the kids to do to put that pouch in there and keep it in there during the day. And Ms. Duff has a whole lot better understanding of this. Now, I think Dr. Warren is gone, but she has a grandchild in school at Conway, and they're already doing this. And she had great things to say about the effectiveness. It has taken the temptation away from her grandchild to take it out and use it, and it is a way to effectively control it. So that just seems to me something we can do, we can try to do.
Just to add to this, I do have calls into a couple of legislators on the education committee to try to get some more information on this. So I'll try to have some more info as soon as possible.
Good. Anything that you can share, we would appreciate very much.
Quick, what's your thoughts as a student?
Put your phone down.
Don't lose any friends.
I will say, as a student, me personally, I agree with it only because my phone is a distraction to me at times, especially in those times of procrastination. It's like, what do you do? So you pull out your phone, and so that you successfully procrastinate, and then that takes away from instruction time as well as time to do your work in class. So I feel like when there is that procrastination time, if you don't have your phone, you don't have something to occupy your time of procrastination, then you have no other choice but to do your work. So I agree with it.
I've heard there's a lot to be learned off TikTok.
You can learn anything on TikTok. You can learn anything on TikTok.
I don't have TikTok.
You sure can.
You can
I guess
learn
I'm not
anything
getting
on TikTok.
What else you got for us, Dr. Guest?
As you know, and I know you have talked about this, but let me catch the high points. You had a bond issue of about 80 some odd million dollars, so about 3 years ago. That money, that amount of money has been spent down to $43 million. That investment matures on the 15th of this month, which is tomorrow. There has to be decisions about how that money is reinvested. I'm sure you have heard discussions about arbitrage in here. We are in an unusual financial time. Jack Trumper and a whole team of smart financial managers last year said they'd never seen anything like this. The money that you borrowed on that millage, on that issue, you were able to invest that, and we got people at Arvest Investment Services who were eager to help you make more than you were paying, and they can help you make more than you were paying, but you can't do that. That's arbitrage. You can't invest that money and make more by that investment than what your interest expenses are. The IRS forbids that. You have promised that you wouldn't let that happen. So we are going to have to address the issue of arbitrage, and that what that means is that the reinvestment of that $43 million has to be carefully done, as Jack said today, in such a way as to meet the Internal Revenue guidelines and get as much money for the district through this investment for the building programs as we can, but not violate the issue of arbitrage. And if you do exceed that interest, if you do exceed the revenue because you have invested, because you have more wisely invested, you may have to pay some of that money back out of the proceeds. Not, send me money out of your operating fund. If the proceeds are held over here in a particular place, in a particular account, and you're discovered that to have to pay some of that back, then whatever you have to pay back to the IRS will come out of the proceeds of that investment, not out of the operating fund of the district. Does that make sense?
Who allowed us to do that?
Ma'am?
Who allowed us to do that, Jay
Who-
Crumper?
Who allowed?
Who told us? Who suggested that we,
No,
Use that money.
Arvest Bank, it manages the district's investments.
Oh,
And
okay.
Arvest's folks live and breathe making as much money for their clients as they can. So Arvest was making the most money for us that they could. That's their job.
They overshot.
They have a fiduciary responsibility to help you make as much money as they possibly can. But in their zeal, they exceed the arbitrage limit. Possibly. Now, I can tell you that we had a long meeting the other day and the lawyers are still talking about it. But more, there's a possibility that the arbitrage limit has been exceeded, and because of that, some money may have to be paid back to the IRS out of the proceeds of the investments.
So if we over-earned, over earnings are returned to the IRS, so we never lost any money, we just
That's
never
correct,
paid
that's
any.
correct. That's
It zeroes out at the
That's
top
right.
dollar, and then we
That's
get
right.
a dollar pass.
That is my simple math. It's not coming out of the food service fund or something like that.
It's
It's
just-
coming out, and Ms. Rowlett, to her credit, has held that money in a single account. There's a lot of money in that single account. It's the product of the interest that's been earned. So it'll be a matter of taking it out of that account and sending it to the IRS.
So we never saw it, never used it,
That's
didn't
right,
lose it.
that's right.
We got as much money as we could, and then the next
That's right.
penny over goes away.
That is what I wanted to make sure that you understood, that you don't want to have to give anybody part of your money, but in this case, it's a matter of your tax-free status and violating the terms of the bonds. Did I make sense out of all that? Did you, I'm talking to you. We've talked about this a lot, and.
I understood, but when the proceeds, did we use the proceeds to pay make any of the bond payments? Like, were we counting on the money we made because eventually this 43 million is gonna generate no revenue because it's gonna be at zero, because we're gonna spend it all, right?
Oh, yeah, you're right, yeah.
And so, but while we have it, it's generating revenue, but we're still making bond payments every
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
So are we gonna be surprised were we using some of the proceeds to defray?
You're paying your bond payments out of the debt service
Fund 5,
proceeds
right?
that come from debt service millage, which is about $16 million. That report that she gave you over here shows your debt service payment at $16,466,137.
Okay.
And we've already paid it,
So
100% of it.
if we have to pay anything, but are you saying at this point, today, on the 14th, the district you don't believe the district has liability right now to pay anything back?
I don't know that for sure.
Okay, all right,
But the lawyers want you to understand that could be.
yeah, okay.
So if we had spent the $80 million in the 3 years, then we wouldn't have had a problem.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, you're right. I should have started out by saying that. The end of December is the end of the 3-year spend down. You were supposed to have spent all that money by the end of December. Because you have not spent it all and it remains there, then that exposes us to scrutiny and arbitrage. Arbitrage is kind of a separate issue, because if you had invested it if you were paying 4% and you'd invested it at 3%, the arbitrage issue wouldn't exist. We would still have an issue because we hadn't spent it all, but we've got two issues. You hadn't spent it all, and the other one is the arbitrage issue.
For the money, for the 3 years that we were making what I've consistently called profit, but,
Yeah.
Where did the profit go?
She's got it in an account. She told me she's holding it in an account.
So
The interest
it was, okay, but is every dollar that was earned from the first day the money hit the account all the way till today in that account?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
As far as I don't know for sure. She's not
Okay,
here.
all right. Well, I'll just follow up with you later about that.
Now, that money tomorrow is going to have to be reinvested, and the attorneys and the investment advisors said they will invest that money T-bills, and we will put as much of it earning as much as it can possibly earn without violating that arbitrage issue. And the second piece will be to also leave us a stream so that we can get to the money. We have to be able to get to the money to pay the bills if they exist. So we'll need the cash, we'll need to be able to access the cash when the bills come due. So that's the two issues. Invest it so that it can be on short-term investment so that it can be accessed, but make as much money as you can.
So when we put this into an investment vehicle last year, so it was in an entire vehicle of some kind for a year, right?
Yeah.
And it came due.
I think so.
Or could we have, how much of that could we have accessed immediately when it was reinvested? Was there an assumption that we wouldn't have been able to pull
Some
it out?
of it you would not have been able to, that's right. Well, I would assume. Some of it would have been invested for a longer period of time with a more favorable interest. And then some of it, obviously you've spent down $37 million of it.
Yeah.
So some of it had to be accessible. So
Okay.
Regardless of how it was invested, you had to be able to get to it to pay your bills.
Okay, well, we can talk about this later, but.
All right, now let me mention another thing. You'd mentioned that there is a $15 million request before the state right now to refinance, to have second lien bonds. Greg Rogers had balked on that because he didn't well, that's what I understood. He had balked on that because, you've got $43 million right now, and you did have 80, so why do you need 15 million more? But he understands now that you're looking at other projects, and you're simply trying to be able to have money to pay for other projects that the district needs. So my understanding from Jack is that he is prepared to make a recommendation to state board to approve that request. That request would have, I believe it would have been made in the January board meeting, or that.
State board meeting.
State board meeting. But because of the snow and all of that, they didn't have a board meeting in January. And he said they only discuss these kind of second lien bonds every other board meeting. So he's not sure if they will do it in February, since they couldn't do it in January, or if they will wait until March. But Rogers is prepared to recommend that those second lien bonds can be issued and release you to do so at the district's discretion.
But we would still need a recommendation from you that it's affordable, because once the state releases,
Yeah.
then you would need to have a good handle on our finances to be able to follow through with that, right?
He keeps telling me I need to make that recommendation. Yeah, sure. Yeah, he keeps telling me he's trying to work me into a corner.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that I would expect it that before we issue second lien bonds at the time, that
You got to have an idea of whether or not you're going to be able to make the payment. But Jack has pointed out that the payment, for example, if you make that investment, there are 2 times a year that the payments are made. They're either made on February the 1st or August the 1st. So Dr. McNulty was apparently considering 2 things. How is the assessment growth in the district? Is it continuing to be strong? And that would be an indication of whether or not you're going to have enough money, enough new revenue come into the district to make a bond payment if the assessment's strong. And the second thing he was trying to do was to defer that first payment as long as he could. So that's what he had considered. Now, I know that's.
And this is normal, these are normal considerations that a superintendent would make, right? To defer and things like that, just the timing, we put it like this, the timing of when to issue bonds is normal, right?
You sure talk about the timing, but you want to be on solid enough footing that you really aren't too concerned about whether you can make your first payment, because you believe you believe the revenue's there to make that payment. But he had a lot of balls in the air, I would say, and I think he wanted to try and give it as much time as possible to feel more confident that first payment could be made as early as possible, and that you could indeed afford the payments.
But you're gonna assess those balls too, right?
See, there he is, there he goes again. Hear me?
All those balls in the air.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Okay. They're all your balls now.
I certainly understand. I understand.
Okay. All right, what else?
I think that's really all. I don't think I have anything else.
Okay. All right, we have a waiver hearing tonight, so let's take a recess, get set up for the waiver hearing. Let's, sorry? Consent, okay, right. I'll do the consent agenda. Let's do the consent agenda and then get the recess. I was trying to get that recess in. Okay, let's take a motion on the consent agenda. Okay, Dr. Tate's made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Smith has seconded. Discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, let's get that recess. Let's let Ms. Duff do her business and with the board, and then do the waiver hearing. All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Ward to grant the waiver for
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Stevenson, and a second by Mr. Keller to grant the waiver. All in favor of granting the waiver to Mr. Stevenson, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Your waiver is granted. You're good.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
Thank y'all.
Okay, and with that, we're just going to adjourn our meeting, okay?
Okay.
I'll take a motion.
Motion adjourned.
You got it.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Good, Fred.
You're going back to work.
Okay. Who made the motion? Dr. Tate? Dr. Tate seconded. Who made the motion?
I did.
Potter made the motion.
I second.
Tate seconded. All in
Oh.
favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
I'm gonna fight that. I think I was the second.